I'd like to welcome everyone to the City Council Special Meeting and Work Session, Thursday, November 13th. Call the meeting to order and ask for approval of the agenda.
Do we have to Can I ask for an amendment, swapping of two items? And I apologize for making this request, Marcy, but swapping item 3 and 4 to have the public meeting law discussion as our first.
Same thing.
Me
As our first item.
So do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Is that the only thing you want?
That would be the only adjustment I had to this time. The reason we asked for, as far as our number asked for this specific discussion was in regards to, citizen comments on item 3, on the housing.
Oh,
So I thought it would make the most sense to have that discussion first
yeah,
and then go into.
I didn't even make that connection. Okay, so all in favor of the amended agenda? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, next.
There's something else, Terry, before we go back.
Excuse me? No, okay. Okay, next we will have public comment. If you would like to make public comment, when you're called on, come up to the podium, state your mailing address and name. Keep it under 3 minutes and be kind and respectful. Bye.
Mayor and councilors, thank you very much. It's about the gym again, on a broken record. This book, all of you have seen, I'm sure, if you haven't read it, Raymar Bartels. The best thing that ever happened to Cannon Beach. And you might not know that phrase came from Gerald Gower, our first mayor that I ever met back in the mid-70s. And he was referring to the Haystack program, which surprised me. The Haystack program was hugely successful for a period of time. And one reason that it was successful was the use of the gymnasium. There were all manner of activities that went on in there, choral directed workshops, oboe, drumming classes, et cetera, et cetera. So it was heavily used. Unfortunately, because of Portland State, it went away. But I think it's imminently possible that it could be reconstituted, and the gym would be an important part. The other thing, of historic note, when we first acquired the reversionary portion of the property, when I was mayor, I got to stand with Dick and Roberta Bash and look at the property, look at the wonderful structures there. And Roberta was particularly interested in the use of the gym and the classrooms for programs that involve the tribe. And I thought that was a great idea. We hadn't acquired the gym at that point, but she was very excited about it. I have been surreptitiously circulating a petition, not very energetically, I have to say, but the names that I have acquired are people that have been there for a long time and that have businesses. Peter Duber, Greg Swedenborg, Ryan Dewey, Marianne Boyla, Andrew Conry, Watt Childress, Robert Necker, Alan Cantor, Deb Mercero, Tracy Cable, Michelle Valguera, Drea Frost, Sharon Amber, Deborah Stidell, and Mark Bates. All people that are very interested in seeing the gym renovated. And I don't know how much time I have, but
You're just about finished.
I'm
You're just about finished.
Okay, I don't think your financial guru, Tim Rainey, said, don't worry about money. You've got a fire hose of money coming at you. I know that's what he said, but I think it's important to know that there are other sources of funds if you keep the cost down, I think it would be eminently possible to do a scaled down project with the 2.5% funding, and you don't have to meet the ORS, motel or requirements. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
He might be your jail members.
Oh, that's a PO Box 132.
Hello, Council. My name is Todd Lawson, member of the Pasadena Tribe. I'm speaking tonight as an individual and an enthusiast for the beach. Couple things I've been hearing through word of mouth and whatnot, what I've been saying or not saying. I just wanted to clarify a few terms. One is the gym is not a Quonset. It's basically based on the historic fabrication of old laminate barn. And so Quonset huts are made of sheet metal and I-beams and L angles is that. So if you, my little visual aid here, which probably won't show up, but I can share it anytime. It's definitely a sister product of the Willamette Valley. So it's not as foreign to Oregon as people are making it sound like it is. Then the other thing was there's been talk about native values and what native values are available in the gym. Well, it doesn't look like a longhouse, but it's the most vernacular, honest, carbon-friendly eco building that we will ever see again in Cannon Beach. There will never be anything like it again. It was probably made with spruce that was intended to go to World War II bombers, maybe left over, but it's that sort of, it was built by volunteers. It wasn't built by the Army Corps of Engineers, and it is just an amazing structure. And then this relates to when people say, like Dick Baptist saying the other day, community center. That's a flexible, malleable thing. It could be a small structure that's competitive with Eric and Gary's structure, or we can keep on adding money to it and make it as fancy as we want. Okay, so budgetarily, move forward quickly. The budget still very much confirms me for anything, for saving the gym, for doing the park. I still don't think people really understand the numbers. I've spent countless hours and I'm willing to talk to anyone about it with strong analysis. And my analysis basically says we need more data and to already throw the gym out because it's too expensive to compete with a cover structure or Gary's hybrid cover, whatever that is. That one costs $2.5 million. I called the builder last week. Turns out I know the architect who designed it. So apples to apples, the gym is competitive. And then thirdly, there's a report going around with the summary. I was hoping my ask for today would be to change a few items in Bruce's report and add, take out the word two-sided and just add the covered structure that we analyze with higher professionals. We don't rely on Todd's quote unquote soft numbers or whatever to tear down the gym before we actually have professionals look at it. Because I think once the numbers come back and are analyzed properly, it's competitive with anything we're talking about. And then if we want showers in it, we add showers. If we want heat in it, we add heat. We keep on adding and adding to the budget, but we know that's tight, right? And so this, the other thing that was left out of that Bruce's report, I think it was just a nearsight, was a mandate for tribal space and art. That's not in the report. I think it can be easily, and that's not to say that that wasn't already on everyone's mind, but I just want to put it in there so we're on the record so there's no confusion down the line. And then finally, I think the classroom space has been talked about forever, and I think there's a strong support of that community. The gym would be a bad classroom, the open pickleball structure would be a bad classroom. Gary's version was probably the closest to a good classroom because it had the enclosed portion at one end. But I think there's room on the site for a 30-person classroom, either heated or unheated. And I also just want to say that I hope we can get more of the class up, the Halem folks involved. Right now, they're feeling a little skittish. They were kind of feeling like they didn't want to take a side, and they've been politely neutral now, but I'm not polite, as you know. And so don't forget us. And I think it's, it'll still be a great project. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else in the audience? Andrew?
I also want to speak in favor of safety of the gym. When I looked at the last meeting about this, I tallied up all the comments that were in the packet. It was 2-1 in favor of saving the gym. The public comments were even more, weighted towards saving the gym. So I was confused at how we got to hold up the gym. I don't understand the idea of a covered structure. I don't want to go outside right now. It's dark, cold and wet. The sun goes down at 4:30, 5 o'clock. That's not an evening event place, and you can't schedule anything in the winter time. You never know if it's gonna be an atmospheric current or anything like that. It's not gonna work, or it's not gonna be useful. I also want to talk about and also the Sean doing all this great work. Involve them, don't shut them out. It's a great resource, let's take full advantage of it. I also want to speak on the housing discussion. I heard you, I think housing is the most important thing we need to tackle, but I don't feel like this proposal is going to make, anything but a big fight. If approved, it's going to nibble around the edges, it's reactionary, it's not visionary. But it's going to end up in a big fight about things that don't have anything to do with housing as the size of people's homes. And, incentivizing people to be landlords that don't want to be. Not to mention, it was created under a cloud with non-public meetings, which is going to again create a big fight in reaction to that. There needs to be a public process of reimagining of how we do something important, serious about housing. But I think happening this, shepherding this forward will only slow us down. It will just create a big fight about tiny issues.
Anyone else in the audience? Is there anyone on Zoom?
Yeah.
Who's our first contestant?
Richard Burline.
Okay, go ahead, Richard.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
We can.
So you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I have 5 public comments about agenda items. The Siegel property. I strongly support the decision to allow the Siegels to construct the property protection riprap on their beachfront property. The Housing Code Amendment. I believe the Housing Code Amendment should be scrapped. The evidence presented shows the Housing Focus Group had 16 secret meetings that should have been public meetings. Much of the work is usable, but the FAR reduction lacks public support, and there is no evidence that will encourage construction of affordable housing in Cannon Beach. The public purpose proposal is hard to understand and is probably unenforceable. More work needs to be done on where duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes would be allowed. The city should appoint a new housing focus group, require them to have public meetings, and to discuss and amend the current proposal. Much of the current proposed amendment is good work. Public meeting law. I made public comments about the public meeting law violations at the August 12th City Council meeting and at subsequent meetings. There has been no public feedback from the city. I filed a complaint as commissioner against Commissioner Kerr on September 3, 2005, concerning unprofessional conduct and public meeting law violations. There has been no public feedback from the city. The city needs to follow public meeting law regulations. The State Attorney General's public meeting law manual prefaces the manual with a comment, quote, err on the side of caution. The city of Cannon Beach has not erred on the side of caution. E-bike regulations. I support adopting regulations like the state park regulations and allow e-bike rentals in Cannon Beach subject to those regulations. Elementary school follow-up. I support the notion that something must get done on a timely basis. I do not have strong opinions about removing the existing structures, but I do believe more parking needs to be provided. I think local design and construction firms are more suitable than CETA and their construction partners. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next. No other hands up? Okay, last chance on Zoom. And last chance on the audience. Okay, thank you. So first on our agenda, we have an introduction of the new Public Works Director. Chris. Let me try this. Great.
Astrid, great.
Okay, well, I was close.
Thank you. This place.
So who's going to do the introductions?
Let's go ahead and start. We're happy to introduce you to our new Public Works Director, Chris Smith-Andrea. Chris joined the team on November 10th, taking on from Karen Levante, who is retiring reluctantly on our part on November 28th. Chris has 16 years of experience in construction project management and is a resident of Arch Cape. Chris has worked with numerous municipalities and public entities, including the cities of Warrenton, Earhart, Seaside, Antonita, Nehalem, Wheeler, and Tillamook, where he advised on delivery methods, permitting, community engagement, and regularly presented to boards and the public. Chris has a deep connection to our area, is a former member of the Arch Cape Water District Board of Directors, has firsthand understanding of the infrastructure needs of our coastal communities, and understands the importance of preserving our natural beauty while meeting the evolving infrastructure needs of residents and visitors alike. His strong ties to the community give him insight into local priorities, and he's committed to fostering the transparency and collaboration between public works and the citizens we serve. Chris, go.
Thank you, Bruce.
And I think you want to lighten us?
You know, you summed it up pretty well there, for me. Yeah, I'd entertain any questions, council members have, but I'm all of, 3-4 days in. And I'm just thrilled. I've met the team, looks like a really strong team. People that want to go do, what's right for the community, and, I've been drinking from a fire hose, learning from Karen about everything that I can before she departs. So yeah, it's a really great team, really excited to be here to serve the community that I live and work in, and yeah, nice to meet everyone.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Okay, welcome.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay, so then we're going to move on to an action item, findings of fact and conclusion for William Rasmussen Miller Nash LLP on behalf of owners Martin and Maxine Siegel Living Trust appeal planning commission decision to deny CU 2506 APP 2503. And
Yes, hey, Don.
Missy, are you ready?
Yes, I am ready.
Thank you.
I believe we're just going to present the staff report, which recommends adopting the findings of fact and conditions. And I believe the council may, at this time suggest any, changes to the conditions or findings.
Okay, anybody have any?
Yes, I did. I prepared it in writing, so I don't waste time. Okay, I started again. 1786-080A on page 4 of the decision. The findings state that the council found that the listed factors in 1786-080A that quote unquote should be considered are aspirational in nature and not absolutely required to be considered. I don't believe that the council made that finding, but if it did, it is an error. The ordinance does not say may be considered, but should, and therefore I believe the council erred in deciding of that should be considered as merely aspirational. When I'm referring to the council, I mean the three who voted in favor of the riprap. On page 7 of the findings, CMVC 1786-210 D2, which requires evidence that high priority methods of erosion control will not work, it states that council found that the ordinance does not require applicants to try higher priority methods or would have used the language have not worked. They don't have to show that they tried and failed. The council never discussed this kind of interpretation of the statute, including the proviso that even if the CMVC does require a tried and failed approach, they did try and did fail. I fail to see how the discussion amongst the council members ever reached this level of statutory interpretation. On page 8, the findings ignore the fact that the engineer to the applicant on several occasions was asked if riprap would prevent overtopping and said it would not. 1786-210E1, qualifications for beachfront protection, page 8. No follow-up question was permitted referencing the seminar held on July 15, 2025, wherein coastal engineer Jessica Cote, Professor Ruggio of OSU, and Ms. Benzoni from DLCD held a joint session in council chambers with the Planning Commission, City Council for the purpose of providing educational and information on shoreline management practices to help enable the Planning Commission and Council to make decisions based on best available science. There is a video of this presentation, and at 1 hour, 2 minutes and 3 seconds, Jessica Cote answered the question on what she defined as critical need. She said that in Washington, they defined it as danger of losing critical infrastructure, which includes residential housing, within 3 years. This was not permitted as part of the council discussion because the hearing was on the record, and this exact fact was not raised below. However, there was lots of reference to the information presented in the joint seminar and planning commission meeting, and thus I believe references to that information should have been part of the record as it was attended by all and referenced by the planning commission in its deliberations that led to their decision. E, long-term or reoccurring costs to the public are avoided. The finding that the council found that costs refer only to monetary costs and not non-economic costs. Did council discount or choose to ignore a large body of evidence provided by appellants, or actually provided by the, not the appellants, but provided by those against the riprap about the cumulative negative impacts from the hard armoring of ocean beaches, including in the seminar on coastal management practices? Does the council want to go on record to say that there was no cumulative negative impact on beaches caused by the placement of riprap in the face of expert testimony by coastal management engineers and experts that in fact there is cumulative negative impact? Page 11, it states that council considered the cumulative impact of riprap on the beach. Cumulative impacts were not considered by the council members who approved this riprap. All evidence concerning that was ignored by the majority. And that is it. And I'd like this to be part of the record, along with findings and conclusions, especially if there is to be an appeal.
So thank you, Councilor Kerr. My recommendation to the council is that there be a motion on the table to adopt the findings either as written or with some slight modifications. And I do believe that the council should, I'm going to recommend not adopt Councilor Kerr's statement as findings for 2 reasons. One, the statement doesn't reflect the vote of the entire council, and the statement does include evidence that isn't in the record, and that could leave the decision vulnerable to a challenge as a procedural error and a remand by LUBA. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or talk about, you know, the language of the conditions of approval. I know that was the subject of some of Counselor Ostrander's motion.
Well, I'm not asking that what I have written here be included with the findings of the fact as part of the findings of fact. I'm asking that it be included in the record as in opposition to the findings of fact in the event that there is an appeal, that there is a record of my dissent in the
Your
record.
verbal statement. Are you asking for your verbal statement to just be part of the video?
Oh, yes, I'm not
Okay.
asking you to, what I wrote, absolutely not, no, it's.
Okay.
It's messy, I wouldn't ask for it to be included, but, no, my verbal statement to be included in the record, that's all I'm asking for.
So I
Okay.
think we maybe need a motion.
For what?
I want to make sure that anyone else does anybody else have questions?
I had I just had a couple of questions. So on page 5 of the findings, at the top of it, the council chooses to rely on the geotechnical report instead of the other expert evidence in the record. I had my impression of that statement was that instead of other expert evidence in the record, there was no other geotechnical reports to reference from the opposition to this. So it's not ignoring other geotechnical expert reports, it's only ignoring other experts about other subjects. So I don't think that's an apples to apples comparison to have in there. I took a stab at changing that sentence, to say the council chooses to rely on the geotechnical report provided by the applicant to find that by the preponderance of the evidence in the record, there is a demand for the shoreline stabilization structure. Additionally, the evidence provided by opponents, the application did not provide in the record a site-specific geotechnical report that would refute the demand of the shoreline stabilization structure. And because I was looking at that as there was other kinds of experts, and this to me was reading as if we've been presented with a site-specific geotechnical report that we were ignoring.
I totally disagree with that interpretation. I think the way that it's written actually it does reflect the facts. I don't think that there was other evidence in the record from a coastal engineer and other people who have studied coastal hard armoring. So I think that there were experts in the record on the side of opposing the appellant that they chose that the majority of the council chose to put the geotech report above that evidence, but they made that decision. I don't think that it has to be a geotech report because if that was the case, in any case where you have an appellant, as in this case, who has the wherewithal or the funds to hire a geotech expert to support their position, you're very rarely going to find an opposing side who's going to be able to hire a geotech expert to support their position. It just isn't going to happen. It's a reality of the way this system works. So I think that the way it's written, I would be much more inclined to leave it as it is.
I could just do away with that sentence, the council chooses to rely on. I don't think it's necessary or relevant.
If I could speak to the comments, Councilor Ostrander's comments. So typically when a city council adopts findings and there is expert evidence in the record, it's important for like LUBA to understand that the council made a choice between competing evidence and it made that choice, and because it gets deference to that choice. So that's sort of the first reason why you'll see that in findings sometimes, because when there is a lot of evidence, it's helpful to LUBA to know that the council did consciously choose some evidence over other evidence. This is a little bit of a weird situation here because there is some evidence in the record from Blue Coast Engineering that did purport to evaluate this particular site rather than the typical more general study. This was from Jessica Coate, and the Planning Commission relied very, they made a different call than the City Council, and the City Council is the ultimate decision maker. But the Planning Commission did rely on that evidence that did purport to evaluate this particular site. And that is why I suggested that this be included in the findings. But I think Councillor Ostrander's proposed change is also a reasonable one. It's just that the council's decision will then not get the benefit of the deference in that judgment call.
Okay, I was just the way I read it, made it sound like that. I'm fine with the way it is, but if that's the legal thing, it makes more sense. And then the other comment that I had, it was kind of a question on page 10, and then I believe it happens twice on page 11 of the planning sheet. The middle of the page at council finds the evidence of the record, the existing vegetation, will be replaced by native beach grass or similar vegetation. Is the phrasing of that because that was what was in the application, or can we modify that native beach grass or similar vegetation with something a little bit more specific? Starting with like referencing native willows and specifying American dune grass.
As mentioned in the conditions.
As mentioned in the conditions, yeah.
Thank you for that question. That was from the application. And that the language is because that is what the applicant proposed. But I think the council could add a condition of approval that's in the maintenance condition of approval that I have to go down to that condition of approval, that if perhaps could be in the condition of approval that requires a vegetation maintenance plan.
It is in the conditions, condition
Yes.
3, but the question was if it could be the reason 10 and 11 needed those 3 places that it had to be that specific verbiage, or if having just under conditions was adequate.
Thank you for the question. It is probably a good idea to have the condition 3 language be matched in the findings. So I think a change to say native beach grass or similar vegetation identified in condition 3 could do it.
Okay, and then so it's in that paragraph for that, and then it was on page 11 at the bottom as well. The stabilized ribbon would be planted with native grass. So that sentence to include vegetation as condition and condition of approval 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Okay.
I thought there was 3 that was popping in this one. Maybe it was just too far. That was my comments.
Anybody else? Okay,
With those revisions, I move to approve the findings of fact and conclusion of law for appeal 2503.
second. Okay, further discussion? Okay, roll call please.
Counselor Hampton,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes,
Yes.
Council President Kerr,
No.
Counselor Ostrander,
Yes.
Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Missy. Okay, so now we'll close special session and discussion, and, remember, we're switching items 3 and 4, so start out with public meetings law discussion.
Hey, would you prefer I go up center? All right.
Please, thank you.
Good evening, council. It's good to see you again.
Yes.
My name is Jody. I am an attorney with Fury Elsner Hammond LLP. I am going to be the new Ashley Crystal. When she transitions away from the firm in January, so I'm here to do a lot of things on your agenda, but one of the things that Jen and Bruce asked me to do was sort of be here for you, to sort of ask your questions regarding public meetings laws. There have been some changes to statute. I believe they came out in 2023 that have caused some confusion across the state. It's not just here. And I can do my best to answer your questions. At the end of the day, OGEC makes their own interpretations as to what the statutes and the rules say, and so if they disagree with my interpretation, so be it, but I will do my very best to try to keep you guys in mind OGEC's interpretation of the law. So I don't have a formal presentation. I did provide, 2 specific handouts from OGEC. One was an FAQ speaking about public meetings in general, and one was sort of like a picture workflow, which is kind of helpful. And then the third document was, a PDF of a presentation that actually was presented to this council, I think, in April of this year, earlier this year. So that's available for your reference as well. I think the actual training is available on YouTube. If I'm not mistaken, so that's also available. So I can answer questions at your leisure, or I can just continue to out of the way if you'd like. I can probably do that for a few hours.
Are you familiar with the housing focus group that was part of?
I have been somewhat briefed on it. How about you give me the facts so that I don't mistake anything from what I heard secondhand?
An informal housing task force was formed,
Okay. And
with a variety of community members.
Excuse me,
It was during.
Okay,
It was
okay,
during.
so it was a council, directed.
right, but it was joint
Advising.
A joint meeting of council and planning commission.
Oh, okay.
And people and DRB, right? and
So there was
people-
formal action before this.
Right, and people volunteered, but there was a concern that that you couldn't have a quorum from any body. So therefore, for council, you couldn't have more than 2 council members on this body, so to make a quorum. And for, planning commission, it was 4, right?
There were only 2 members of the planning
Right.
commission. Were on
And
it.
so everyone was very careful to make sure there was no quorum of any of those bodies taken as part, this was done in the open with volunteer, people from the different groups volunteered
Okay,
to sit on this.
Those meetings were not public meetings,
okay,
and they made recommendations to planning commission, to move forward with housing
okay.
amendments. So I think the big question for us, I mean, so that's some background.
Yes, thank
The
you.
big question for us is, maybe legal opinion,
Yeah,
about what are appropriate steps to move forward, with changes to our housing code, given that there's some question about those meetings not being governed.
Well, so they made recommendations to Marcy, who was hired by the city, who is sitting back there. And there were also 2 city employees in in this group.
Oh, okay.
So, and none of the meetings were public.
Okay,
Yeah.
So Marcy was hired by the city to reconstruct the housing code. And she wanted a focus group to talk to her about ideas. She's the one who actually formulated the new housing amendments. And she presented them periodically to the council and the planning commission as progress was made. So it wasn't like there was secret meetings and nobody knew about them. And then all of a sudden, here's this big housing bill. It happened one step at a time, and it's outlined in her materials, how many times she met in an open meeting to say, well, this is what the focus group thought about this, or this is what they advised me, what do you think? And there's public comment. On and then this went step by step through until it went in front of the planning commission for adoption.
So in terms of the housing body, I remember what we call it, the housing advisory body. What do they call
Focus group,
For task force.
yeah.
So the one that was formally, formed by this council and planning committee. It's an advisory body to the council and technically the planning commission, since you both adopted that formal creation.
It was not one, but like a resolution.
Oh, you didn't do any, okay.
No resolution.
Okay, that's fine. It sounds like it was still an advisory body that was formed with the purpose of advising the planning commission, right? Advising bodies, as long as they don't have a quorum, of decision makers on them, they're not subject to the same public meetings laws that elected officials are, or decision-making bodies is what the statute tells us. So as long as this housing group didn't have the ability to make decisions, did it of themselves, then they would not be subject to public meeting laws, notice requirements, and the things that you guys do so well on a regular basis when it comes to open and transparent government. So that's the housing piece. There's focus groups, which I think are separate, because they were formed not collectively by the council, is that correct?
No, the tree ordinance.
Okay, is everybody clear with the housing part of it?
So I wanted to ask a clarifying question. So the contractor working for the city was directed by the collective the three body, the council, planning commission, and DRB to do a task to rewrite this code.
Okay,
So that contractor had been assigned to do this task to rewrite the code.
Okay.
She requested assistance from input from a smaller body within us. That's why the advisory body was formed. So that she could bounce ideas off throughout it. The advice and information given to the contractor, because she'd already been assigned to do this task, does that count as providing direction as an advisory body?
by the three.
By the smaller task force group?
So I know you guys have some committee members who are on multiple meetings or multiple committees. So long as there was no quorum for any decision-making committee or council, then no, there was no quorum. So that quorum piece that's a huge piece of it. That is when public meetings laws kick in, you have to have a quorum. So long as these three individuals collectively did not have any decision-making power, and it doesn't sound like they did.
They did.
Andrew,
So long as they didn't have any decision-making power, then there was no public meetings law requirements kicking into their conversations. The second, if they would have been engaging with other members of their committees enough to form a quorum, then there would have been arguably a public meeting. But that's the line, was there a quorum? And you can also, like, there's all sorts of things in the public meeting law requirements about how communication forms between members to form a quorum, but it sounds like this was in person. that sound about right? So the quorum is what you would think of as a quorum, how many of the people in the room talking have the ability to make a decision on behalf of the city. There's no quorum, there's no ability to make a decision. It's an advisory. They're provided, not decide. That's that. But the advisory committee trees, I think is what they were called.
Let's, before we go into the trees,
Yeah,
I think, but let's finish out.
Yeah,
sure.
Because I think that's the clearest of the three. So the people that attended the meetings, was there ever a forum? I mean, I know
A forum of any group, there was never a forum from the
I
council.
didn't attend any
There
meetings.
was never a forum from the council, and there was never a forum from the planning commission, and there was never a forum from the, design review board.
And there's absolutely no record of those meetings. There's no record.
Actually, Marcy did provide a record, if you read through, all of what she submitted. She said, she sort of outlined what happened at the different meetings.
And the dates.
and
So,
Marcy was at all of these meetings.
All of them.
so there doesn't need to be a record when it's a public meeting. It's essentially, business as usual, for the city.
So what I hear you saying is, and looking for a way forward with, some, applications about public meeting law violations, is that we would be fine moving ahead with where we're at now, not like we have to throw out all the work that's been done.
In terms of the work that Marcy's about to present, is that what you mean?
Yes, which is all formulated from the information that was gathered. That we're not in any danger there of moving forward with, where we're at now and moving forward from here.
From what I've heard, I don't see a violation of public meeting law, or I don't hear one. Essentially, Marcy, from my perspective, was acting as a staff member, doing some fact finding. And she was given a resource, this advisory committee, to pull that fact finding from. That's not unusual, especially not from, adopting code amendments. It's actually more common than anything else I've seen. Rarely do you see city staff do that wrong. The line is a very, very fuzzy one, so I don't wanna take this lightly in it. This is definitely a problem that, again, all the jurisdictions across the state are going through this right now, not just you guys. So if there's any sense of relief in that, know that it's a hard topic that honestly, I hope the legislature picks up and clarifies, and I'm not alone in that. But we do the best we can. So I don't want to just sell it as some sort of light thing. It's, whether or not a law was violated is ultimately up to OVIC to decide, so I can't say no, but from my perspective, I don't see any violation.
Would there have been a better way to handle this? It would have been better to have a formal council resolution, tasking.
I'm a fan of transparency, so I am all about, having conversations about anything code amendment wise, out in the open. But, at the end of the day, staff have to do the work, and staff, in this case, I consider Marcy an arm of the staff. They can't have a public meeting every time they want to get input, so, there's gotta be a line there so that they can get the work done. And to I don't know that anything was done wrong per se. I think creating an advisory committee of both the planning commission and, I understand why you go that route. I can see how the forming of this committee could create heartburn over what was being said in this committee, because it's something that's basically been sanctioned by you guys. So we should have more transparency in what they talk about, but at the end of the day, they don't have any deciding powers. Had you granted that to them, to form a formal committee with decision-making authority, then this would be a different conversation, because you didn't grant them any of that authority. So at the end of the day, they were just advisors. That's all they were. And they were providing advice to a staff member about a very important citywide topic. So yeah, it's gonna get heated.
Okay.
Well, this on OGEC, from OGEC says, fact gathering bodies purposes to gather and provide factual information cannot make decisions or recommendations.
I guess the line between decision and recommendations is probably more fuzzy than, what I'm seeing it as. A formal recommendation would be them coming in front of you and saying, this is what I want. I don't know if they ever did that.
No, the application was presented, it was assembled by, Marcy and Earthworks.
Okay,
And presented, and a number of the committee members spoke in public comment in support of it, but not as part of the presentation.
so their name wasn't on the application, the city's name was on the application.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So this is one of the things that, the gray area that came out of the 25 legislation or 23 legislation. My perception of that language is more about formal recommendations. So I formally present to a decider, here's what I want you to adopt. Here's what I recommend you do in your code. Putting a recommendation to somebody who doesn't have the deciding, authority. To me, it's a recommendation, you're right, but it's not one with any, kick behind it, because at the end of the day, it's got another level to me. But. Fuzzy.
Anybody have any other questions about the housing? Are we?
I guess I'm just wondering if we move forward with this and there's some kind of ethical challenge, what process, what would that look like?
So the ethical challenge would be to the individuals who were participating in the public meeting. The alleged public meeting that wasn't noticed or publicly, available. It's the individuals that attend the public meetings that hold the liability. This is all new stuff. These public meetings laws are all new stuff, so who knows what could happen? But the products that, let's just use this specific housing code amendment specifically because it's easier for me to point to something. There have been multiple levels of publicly noticed meetings to discuss this. So the decision is really gonna be what you guys ultimately do. And that decision is will, if it violates public meetings law, yeah, that decision might get challenged in court. That makes it, planning commission too, I guess, that's also a decision. But if you go all the way back to the beginning. If it was just, if ODEC was to come back and say, well, I think this may have been a public meetings law and it was violated. It's, my knowledge, it's not a flow down situation, because there was a new decision after that, and a new decision after that, and a new decision after that. Could I be wrong on this? Yes, ODEC likes to interpret things in their own world. But that is multiple levels of decisions, multiple levels of public meetings that would have to be violated for that decision to be brought.
Pardon?
Missy has.
Oh, okay. Missy, you want to weigh in on?
Thank you. Thanks, Jody. I would like to weigh in. Jody's right, everything that she said. This, in the land use context, the city has done everything that needed to do to comply with the land use statute. So it had to send a particular type of notice to all of the residents of, property owners in the city called ballot measure 56 notice. It did that, and it did that in the way the statute said. It sent notice to DLCD in the timeframe and the requirements of the statute. And then the planning commission considered the amendments and has made a recommendation to the city council as to how to move forward. So I wanted to just clarify and confirm that from the land use process perspective, this is going the way that it's supposed to. And none of these allegations, if they were allegations of public meetings law violations that were borne out in court or by OGEC, would impact the viability of whatever housing code amendments are adopted by the city council in an appeal to LUBA. LUBA doesn't consider public meetings law violations. It's not a procedural error under the land use statutes. So I want that, this is good news, actually, that part. So, and it's a little bit of it's a two-track system where you can have a public meetings law violation, but it doesn't damage the ultimate final product if the final product is a legislative decision to amend the land use code. That's it.
Super helpful for me.
Thank you. Okay, everybody good with that? Any other questions on housing? Okay, so let's go, please.
Okay, well,
Want to give this to you?
I was the only one, I mean, council was present when this began, the whole tree thing.
Okay.
And so the way it began was, you know, like this was back when, Nancy and, so you were.
Yeah, our three of us were.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And Nancy and Brandon, yeah. So we had decided that, you know, for the code rewrite, that housing, trees and wetlands were something that needed to be done more quickly than the housing amendments, or than the code amendment was addressed. And so we wanted, they were almost like an emergency situation, because there was, you know, we were being cut down too fast, and wetlands were being degraded, and housing has become a huge issue in this community. So I asked the council, I said, well, you know, how about a group of staff, you know, a group of people from the staff of rewriting the tree amendment and tree ordinance, just, you know, and then, you know, see how it turned out. So a group of people volunteered. I was the only council member on it. There were 2 planning commissioners, 1 counselor, and 2 citizens on the original focus group.
What about Prince? There was last part, but
He was part of both,
okay,
planning and parks, I think, and Stacy was already off in the parks, or getting off, I think she was off during the course of it. So we met on a pretty regular basis, once a week, or once every 2 weeks, to discuss, well, how we would like to see the tree amendment or tree ordinance, you know, change. And it was a very diverse group, there was a lot of back and forth, there was no, like, you know, a lot of people advocating from different points of view. And the end result was a tree ordinance that, and as far as I'm almost positive, we were permitted, I asked council if we could consult their land use attorney. I remember that particular time, I asked if we could consult with the land use attorney, because that costs the city money. And so we can't just do it, we have to have permission to do it. And the council, this was not by resolution, the council just by, a consensus said, sure, do it. So we did reach out to the land use attorney with several different versions to see, is this legal, is this not? We reached out to planning department. Is this even doable? we reached out to Public Works, is this gonna cause issues for Public Works? What things would we like to see in the tree ordinance? So we asked everybody we could. And then we had, I believe that Steve issued a PAPA notice and notice of the LCD, and all that was done, and then there was a public hearing on the tree code. And I think the first time, I'm trying to remember, the first time it did not pass, because bunch of people said, no, we don't like this, we don't like that, we want this change, we want that change. So the group went back to the drawing board, try to incorporate all the changes from the different, somebody can incorporate. Thanks. Try to incorporate the different changes from all the different people involved. And then came back again in front of the, planning commission, and it did pass, and they said, okay, now we're gonna send it up to the council. Now, our group, the tree focus group, had no decision-making power whatsoever. There was no forum. We didn't have open public meetings because we were meeting in living rooms, and we didn't have the wherewithal to have a public meeting. So, you know, looking back on it now, I would have loved it if we could have had, you know, it all videotaped, et cetera, all the discussions that we had, because then we wouldn't be having an issue now. But I think that because we had, and this is separate from the dark sky things, are totally different. So, because there was no discussion with council along these lines ahead of time. So, at this point, there's a work product. And the final version was going to be presented to council to see if they liked it or didn't like it, or we sent it back to the. It did, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped a step. It did go to council, and council had problems with certain things. We went back again and tried to incorporate those changes. We invited anybody to come to a meeting who wanted to come. And several people did show up for one meeting or another meeting. But we didn't put public notice in this bulletin, the city bulletin, of when those meetings were. We didn't notice the meetings, and we didn't record them. So now there's a work product that was going to come to council, but we canceled bringing it in front of council because we're not sure where we stand. And when people started, a couple of people in particular started complaining about public meetings law violations. Oh, you know, the 30-day statute of limitations already passed. So, you know, that wasn't the issue. The issue was, where do we go going forward with the tree group? Do we just dissolve this focus group? A new one starts that doesn't have me on it. And then they advise me and give me their final product, and I take it to council and say, well, what do you think? And council says, well, you know, let's have it looked at by planning department or whatever I don't know. I don't know where we stand.
Okay. Can I ask a question? So is it different between the housing committee met in City Hall? All their meetings were in City Hall, at City Hall, right?
No, group.
The housing group.
It was on Zoom.
Oh, it's on Zoom.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it wasn't.
So
They don't use the city hall.
oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay. But were those Zoom meetings recorded?
No, there was no
Okay.
recordings. Yeah.
Thanks. Go ahead.
So the difference that I'm hearing between what you're describing and the housing committee is it was the applicant on the code amendments. So it sounds like this group sort of I'm not sure what the application process is for your planning department, but generally there's an applicant, and if it's the city, and the city needs to collectively decide we want to apply for this amendment. We haven't decided yet what we want. We'll put together a group. The group comes back with a recommendation. If we like that proposal, we will apply for it. And it starts over at that point. So it sounds like you may have missed a couple steps in that. I don't know how it went from this group to the planning commission. That might be a bit of a gap there. But, you know, I don't know what I don't know, so it's hard for me to say it without digging into the records, which I certainly don't want to do in retrospect, 'cause I don't think that helps anybody to get forward, to move forward and try to, you know, find a way to get into this. I don't think, for what it's worth, I definitely think that with pulling that application back was the right call. Not necessarily because I think there were violations of law, but because it just isn't really how that process is supposed to go. If you wanted to create an advisory board for yourself, you're free to do that. That group would then effectively present their proposal to you. You would present it to council, and council would collectively decide if they like this. And then they become the applicant. It doesn't even need to this, and I've seen this enough times to know that the decision to amend code in a way doesn't necessarily have to be specific. It just needs to be decided on by council. If you want to change the city code, someone needs to be the applicant, and if it's the city, I guess I should say, if it's city staff, it needs to be the decision of this council.
So is the difference between housing and trees, because there wasn't a Marcy that we were collecting information for and making recommendations to, who then developed them, is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
That's not-
you were missing that staff. Not that Mercy's staff, but I'm thinking of her as an agent of the city versus
Yeah.
staff. I don't know if she actually submitted an application, I don't know enough about her application, I'm sure she'll talk about it. But assuming that that's sort of the process that she went through, which is sort of standard land use, then there's no issue there. But if you circumvent some steps in there, yeah, it's, I don't know if it's necessarily a violation of law, but it's not a good look. But
So moving forward with the tree, amending the tree ordinance, the way to do it then is the group meets, as an advisory group to me, because I took it on as a job with the approval of council at the time, but a consensus, not an formally adopted resolution. And then when the project is done, does that mean I don't participate in it? I just take it from them?
it will become your proposal at that point, for you to make. Your recommendation. I would like to recommend that the city propose its code in this way, and then council will vote on that. If they want to be the applicant and propose the amendments, and they'll go through the process as anybody else would have to in order to recommend a change. I think of comp plan amendments when I think of an applicant, but the code amendment is essentially the same thing.
It's land use.
Yes.
As well. So, but what I guess I'm not understanding is when you say advisory committee, does that mean I can't attend the meetings and listen, or I can't participate, or how does that work?
I see nothing wrong with you partaking in your own advisory committee. Don't invite others to it, though. Don't invite other council members to it.
Right,
Yeah,
you're on a forum.
they're your advisory committee. You're free to meet with them as you choose.
But would it be better if Lisa, as a counselor, wasn't involved in the process, and it was a group of citizens that aren't representing any city committee? They're,
So they could, yes, but so let's pretend like the tree committee or wanted to apply for some code amendments, they would go through the process as an entity of themselves, not representing the city. They would need to say, the tree committee, whatever they're calling it, want to apply with the planning department or land use department for these specific code amendments. They submit that application and it goes through the process, probably goes straight to the planning commission. It's like every other jurisdiction. I'm not that familiar with your guys' zoning code. And then it goes through that route.
And paying all the applicable fees and.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so why is that better than them being advised?
But what I wondered if Lisa is in charge of the head of the advisory committee, does she have a vote on the city council for the proposal?
It would, yes, I don't see a conflict there necessarily unless you're benefiting from it somehow.
Right.
It's fact specific, I don't know.
Okay,
Um,
okay, I understand for
Yeah.
the future of the citizen, and if I have any more questions, I could run to you and ask.
yes.
Okay, now,
Does everybody else?
No, I'm not sure I'm clear
Yeah.
on what needs to happen on the tree,
so
the work that's been
Current
done
one,
for the tree
can
ordinance.
I ask and you tell me if I'm right?
yeah.
Okay, so the tree now becomes an advisory committee to me, because I want to, I like, you know, I would like to hear, I'd like to see the ordinance rewritten to reflect what's going on in town now. And they work on the rewrite of the ordinance, and then I present it to council. Regular council, the council decides if they want to go forward with it and want to, I guess, go back to the planning commission, and whether they want to go back to the planning commission and get planning involved with it, have all the talking.
There would be a motion to formally amend, whatever code it is. We would probably actually a motion become the applicant on. We should get special, there's like other not. It would be a motion to come down.
And the meetings of that advisory group would not have to follow public meetings.
No, we're still in the advisory.
But we could not use, as far as I can tell, we can't use any staff members to help us give the advice in this. Well, can,
That is a different question, that's more about using government resources, I don't see that as necessarily financial benefit to you, so that's where the ethics flags are flying in my head. I wouldn't recommend it do it in their work time. If they as a citizen wants to participate.
and they would be reviewing it anyway, if the council decides to move forward.
Exactly. They will get their opportunity.
Right.
To work opportunities later.
Correct, and all those things. And as far as the dark sky, is a similar.
I have a
Finish
question.
trees.
I have a question. So is the cleaner way to do the tree ordinance? To have the group, even if it is Counselor Kerr being the one that is being advised, take it to the city, file the application, go through planning commission, opposed to bringing it to council and have us send it back.
You can do that, they would be their own applicant, and it wouldn't be the city anymore recommending the updates. It would be a private entity requesting updates to city code.
Is it cleaner that way?
Cleaner from the perspective of public meetings.
Yeah. Is it
I
going
don't
to get
know.
less scrutiny, I guess?
Well, the thing about her proposing it is that she would own it. If she presented it to you guys, it would very clearly be more transparent that it was her proposal. Whereas if her work group does it, that might not be quite as obvious. But that's just like split hairs. Yeah. I don't see anything wrong with either way.
So did the tree group use city staff during your meeting?
We met with city staff. We met with both planning and public works to ask them if they would look at what we've written. This was actually, I think, before it even went to planning. Till they look at what was written and see if they had any problem with it, so that we could change it to accommodate their needs.
I do not see anything wrong with that, that's pretty common in land use, you meet with the land use and public works, to make sure that you're not right off the cuff, gonna submit an application and has to get denied. So, yeah, you have conversations with staff just to circumvent denials. That's normal. Yeah, so I don't see anything wrong with that. If.
Oh, Missy?
Hi, thanks a lot. I do also want to note, this is a perfect time in the conversation that the planning staff typically has a work plan for some of their long-term planning projects that they work out on a yearly basis, or maybe it's a biennial basis. And so I think personally, it's a good idea to involve planning staff early and let them take the project, either from the applicant or decide to take it on as a city project. The other reason is that it's the planning staff that is responsible for sending out the statutory land use notices that are required. And so when they get bypassed, that does actually jeopardize the whole process. There's a Measure 56 notice that I mentioned that has to go out, and that can be a go back to the starting line procedural error. And so for those two reasons, it's really important to make sure that the interests of the group dovetails with the planning staff's work program and work plan for the year.
And the Measure 56 notice and the pop-in notification are both sent out by the applicant?
No.
They're sent out by the city?
Yeah.
Okay, so the third party is applying the city,
Yes.
but still, you don't want to issue that?
It's the city that's responsible for doing it. And in fact, applicants can't send the notices to DLCD, and applicants cannot send out the Measure 56 notice. And that's why it is really important to have planning staff involved early.
So that's why it's good to go to actually file the application and pay the fees.
Yes.
And then you're through the correct steps instead of coming to council and sending it back.
Yeah, because the Measure 56 notice is expensive. Not every land use code amendment requires Measure 56 notice. It is really depend on the subject matter, but when the city has to send mailed notice to every property owner in the city, those costs can really add up. And so the application fee sort of is intended to cover that. Maybe.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on trees? Okay, now we're going to dark sky.
All right.
Dark sky did not have the big discussion council. It was floated, we had a more robust dark sky ordinance that complied with the national dark sky criteria. And so that was more informal. Again, it did not have a forum involved. It had two people from planning, three private citizens, or two private citizens, and me as a counselor. And again, that nothing was presented yet, so we haven't gotten to that point. But we suspended all meetings of the dark sky advisory group as soon as we had complaint from a member of the community. And at this point, it's just in a holding pattern. A lot of discussion and again, one community member who was interested in it just decided he wanted to join, and he did. I mean, in other words, anyone who was interested in the subject was welcome to join, and they did. But at this point, we're just sort of in advance. Does it need to have Councilor Ostrander and I were both on it, and we were both from the very beginning. So could it be that this could be an advisory committee to Councilor Ostrander, just like the trees could be to me, and I would drop off of the dark sky only because I could be weird if I was well, that would be two of us. I don't know.
I think, yeah, when there's two, you're skirting that line, you just need one more. And what happens if the decision happens to come on a day when somebody's gone? So off the bat, I don't see anything wrong with this as an advisory, if it was to you or to you. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend, the two of you meet with them collectively. I don't know if there's necessarily a violation there. Probably not, but just for the sake of, okay, nothing to see here, it would probably be better if we had them separately. So that you had, like, I don't even necessarily care if it's I do care if it's the same person in both groups, because you have to be careful of that communications piece where.
Or, you know what, if I would go right off of that.
Yeah.
myself, Just because I want to involve in trees and have people for a long time.
Okay,
And then if Eric chose to, he could have this advisory group, rewrite the dark sky ordinance and then propose it to the council and see if the council would want to take it up.
yeah. Mhm.
Or do they
They could also. do
file
the
an application, just like everybody
Okay,
else,
I
pay
can-
the fees, go to
Should be
planning
consistent.
commission, yeah.
Yeah.
Or what? I don't know.
Be consistent, do it exactly like we're gonna do the trees.
They would be there on that, they would be the applicants.
Right, the same way.
Yeah.
because it's right.
Yeah, so it wouldn't come here first, it would go to application process first,
No,
yes.
that's not, no, that it would come to the council and council would decide what, yes, that's exactly what you
So
said.
it's, so I think Missy and I sort of might have missed on that one. So I think generally if it's a group that wants to make an amendment, in my experience, they test the waters with council first to make sure that they're not wasting everybody's time.
You mean that it's something we're interested
Yes.
in improving?
Yes, so that formal decision, all right, fine. Blessing. Then you can go do the application. From my experience, and this is just my personal experience, if the governing body wants it, they'll be the applicant. But they will go be the they will go through the process like everybody else does. They go back and they file an application, they usually waive the fees for obvious reasons. But they don't circumvent any of the steps. But that doesn't mean that that's how it has to be. Generally, trying to think of a time when a council or a governing body that I worked with came up with an idea on their own in terms of, I wanna go make this change, and it doesn't happen that often, it comes from the public. Whether that's an individual or a collective group, they say, I wanna see this change. So, it's, at the end of the day, it's gonna be the same process, somebody needs to apply. If it's a group, all the better. If it's, the city wants to be the applicant, then they need to follow that same time.
And if the city wants to be the applicant, the fees are waived.
Well, that is the thing that council has to decide. Usually at the same time they decide, yes, let's recommend that, planning staff enter an application on behalf of the city.
Right. But if the group decided they wanted to present it, they would have to file an application themselves, they would have to pay all the fees.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
So how far along are you on your dark side discussions? Not much.
Not very far, I mean, it's.
Where's
there's-
trees?
there's-
we finished the residential and we're working on the commercial.
Yeah, there's a very short initial, but yeah, it's not, it's, I don't know, probably 15 meetings or so and just a couple of pages of stuff. It's not like unreasonably far in there.
And we're starting on commercial lighting, but we stopped before we could keep going on. Okay, well, I really appreciate
Yeah.
the guidance. It's
Yeah,
very,
happy to.
it's so helpful.
I do have one more thing before we move on from this agenda. I know that there have been some, the problem with counselors is well loved, and, I certainly don't wanna see that go away. My one request on your behalf is that you don't record it and display it on Zoom, I think, or YouTube, maybe.
It's on Zoom and YouTube, and YouTube.
Yeah, I think that that's, you're gonna get, where the lines are, nobody knows, okay, me. But that one, you could arguably be making communications, by broadcasting deliberations.
And is that because two counselors are involved?
It's not so much that the two are in the room, but the others could technically be watching.
It's because you watch them.
Well, I watch them after they're over.
That's, that could be
But I-
construed as a communication, so just to play it safe, everybody has coffee with counselors, to my knowledge, it happens everywhere across the state, I think it's just the broadcasting that we might have to bring that one back.
So if we don't broadcast it,
I know, and I heard that. I don't want to get back yet.
It's the highlight of our month.
Or the low light.
Oh, and that's that too.
what's the gossip word?
Yeah.
But, so if we didn't broadcast it, that would mean that people, I mean,
Or else, if you wanna broadcast it, just notice it, like a public meeting, so that's the other option.
oh, we don't
know
notice.
Yeah, we don't.
And so then you don't have to do we don't notice it as a public.
How do we notice it?
You don't,
I've seen it on the, I've seen it on the
but
schedule.
it's not, there's not an agenda, it's not posted,
Oh,
it's just on a calendar.
Oh, we can't notice, we can't have an agenda, because we have no idea what's gonna be said.
So that's one of the requirements of the public meeting laws, sort of have to know what you're gonna talk about, and then notice it accordingly, minutes have to be taken.
We're gonna talk about community concerns.
That would be.
The agenda, there's one agenda item.
So what do we do with it going forward?
And still have them, just I don't recommend that you put them on YouTube or Zoom them live.
So that means that everyone has to be in the audience.
No, that means you would have to have your own council with copy with counselors, so you'd have to have separate.
That's the beauty of them, is people can catch up on the conversation, they don't have to be here, but.
I know, it's disappointing.
But I mean, I know Seaside, their mayor and a couple of their counselors have copy with the counselor, and they have it in a business setting, like a coffee house.
Yeah,
You know,
you can do
like
that, for sure.
And they don't get, you know, by their admission, you know, there's sometimes they're having coffee by themselves. And, okay.
I mean, the other option is to never talk about anything that you'll ever talk about here. I mean,
That's not gonna.
yeah,
Yeah.
it sort of negates the point of it.
Okay.
Does it make a difference if it's one counselor? Or it's still because the other counselors are?
No, it's the ability of the other counselors to tune in.
So serious communications is the concern.
Yeah.
So then what? Going forward, we do allow people to participate on Zoom, but we don't record it so that, in other words.
Yeah, I think as long as you can control who's watching on Zoom, you should be fine.
So
Somebody will actually watch it.
There's no other counselor.
Yeah. Unanimous agreement.
Okay.
So far, then.
And then,
Or talk to you two about what happened.
Yes, that's true.
and that can't happen in any case.
Right.
And then we can't, evidently, we can't put it up on the city website under, recording.
Don't record.
We don't
Don't
record.
broadcast.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I know, but that's about.
And
it.
you can, you can use community resources like the chamber right now.
I don't see anything wrong with that, if we're doing this work on behalf of the city, I see nothing wrong with that.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
oh, that's okay.
Okay.
Free up an hour of what for it?
Sorry, Barb, that's okay. Something really juicy happens, I can't tell you.
Okay.
You mentioned you guys are the order in public meeting.
That's true.
The old adage.
That's right, yeah, that's a good point.
That's happened, I had governing body members bring up stuff that brought up the feeds, meeting, and that leads
Okay.
to things changing, yeah, so.
Good. Okay, anything else?
That's all I know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're ready to go on to. The capital housing, yeah, oh, no, that's a discussion. Hi.
Sorry for, wow.
Yeah. Martin, you're soft spoken, we're gonna have to really speak up because it's so hard to hear you.
Yes, okay, I will do that.
Can we push one of those things closer to that?
Not gonna help in the ring, but I'm trying to have a fun.
Should I do want to go through this presentation. Do you want to pull it up for me or should I? Join the stage. Yeah, it's in the packet. Is this loud enough?
I can hear you.
I can hear you fine.
I can hear you. Yeah. And I. The audience wonder.
I'm just gonna start with the agenda here that, I put together this packet and includes, besides this agenda, it includes the planning commission recommendations from the 9/25 hearing. And, my presentation to explain the process that we've been through, and then it has a pretty lengthy, document that's a record of all of the public meetings that we've had, including the housing focus group meetings, includes those, the description of the agenda and the outcome of each of those meetings. The potential actions from this meeting, that they are, it seems that there are two choices. One is to continue with after we discuss, after you hear the presentation and then you have your discussion. They would be to continue with the amendment process and set up a hearing before the city council of what planning commission has forwarded. Or to decide to start the process over, but use some of the information and insight gained from the initial process. There are probably other paths that could be taken too. So the packet does include, in the next couple of pages, it includes the excerpt from the planning commission minutes, that I forwarded the packet of amendments. And I included that so that you could see the discussion amongst the planning commissioners, but I won't spend time on that. I'd like to just go straight into the work session presentation that I created. So, first page. A little history about this project. I've been coming here for a long time. In late 2021, the city of Cannon Beach authorized a comprehensive audit of its community development ordinance. This was under Jeff Adams. The final report that we wrote, Earthworks wrote in 2023, recommended three things: amend the CDO to address 4 high priority policy areas through code amendments. The 4 areas were agreed upon as wetlands, trees, housing, and parking. In addition to amending the CDO for those 4 areas, at this sort of concurrently, the job was to complete numerous minor improvements, top to bottom code amendments is what we've been calling this, to update terms, comply with the state law, and improve the function and administration of the CDO. And one of those things was to reorganize the code. When we've done that, we reorganized the code because there was so much duplication in it and so much inconsistency between sections that to do major policy amendments wouldn't have meant perhaps having to strike through language of multiple places where the same language occurred. So we consolidated all duplicate language, we reorganized it, and now we have a more manageable code when we do go to make these policy amendments and the top to bottom amendments. So far, in 2023, we've completed, since 2023, when we initiated the code rewrite project, we've adopted the wetlands overlay and the code reorganization. In early 2024, the City Council directed Earthworks to begin the housing policy related amendments. And if you remember, you asked for a survey, a public survey, and that the public be involved in identifying issues with housing before we set out to amend the code. So Earthworks, working with staff, produced a survey online. It was in English and Spanish, and we received almost 300 responses, which is a very high response rate for a city the size of Cannon Beach. Then we held a public meeting, and that was very well attended. I recall that it was probably 3 hours long. And as a result of what we heard from people, Earthworks recommended a public workshop, a charrette, to kick off the code amendments, to involve the public and identify the specific amendments which would address the issues that the survey had identified and attendees at the public meeting had identified. But members of the Joint Commission, and just to remind, the Joint Commission for the Code Rewrite Project is the DRB, the Planning Commission, and the City Council. When I come to talk about the Code Rewrite Project, I come to that group. The City Council hosts the Planning Commission and the DRB. It's a pretty large group to work with. At the meeting where I recommended the charrette, members of the Joint Commission expressed concerns about the cost and public involvement. And so instead of charrette, we went to a 2-day housing workshop, and that was held in May 2024. And I asked for a housing focus group to be formed that I could work with more closely, more frequently in between Planning Commission briefings and Joint Commission meetings. The workshop meetings for that charrette that was more of a 2-day workshop, they were held in council chambers. The workshop results were reported out as City Council Joint Commission, and then we began the code amendment phase. And there were 3 phases, I would say, in that process. We started with concepts, code concepts, just like we had with the wetlands, where we presented ideas about how we would change the code. And then when we got feedback from the Joint Commission approving of the direction, then we proceeded to do track change amendments. So we progressed through several drafts and revised drafts. Finally, we had a final draft and track change version. And the structure of the that we used for the housing focus groups, and then returning to Planning Commission and City Council Joint Commission, provided for this iterative review and feedback at key milestones. The process ensured that the proposed amendments evolved in response to public input, technical analysis, and community priorities. Now, the public meetings that we had between 1/31 of 2024 and 9/25 of 2025, the city convened 9 joint work sessions with City Council, including the Planning Commission and the Design Review Board. We also, in that time, had 5 Planning Commission work sessions on the code amendments. And then in between, sprinkled throughout, we had 16,000 focus group meetings by Zoom, for the most part, although we did have a couple of meetings in person at City Hall. So a total of 14 public meetings were held in City Hall. That is the Planning Commission and the Joint Commission. At the request of the Joint Commission, the agendas at these meetings often include other items, presentations, and work sessions. For example, Clatsop County Housing Manager Alyssa Kurtler presented the vacancy tax white paper. at Joint Commission's request and pursued the Lease to Locals program information. And we also reviewed the RV site development options, a request for proposal, possibly how developer selection might be handled. And we also brought in county updates on their housing reports. Each cluster of the Joint Commission work sessions and focus group meetings was aligned with a specific phase of the code amendment process. That is, the early concept drafts, the revised drafts, the final drafts, and the track change versions. So about housing focus group. It was formed to accelerate progress on the housing issues. The Planning Commission and the City Council's monthly meeting schedules can create long intervals between opportunities for formal review. And the housing focus group allowed more frequent meetings and maintained project momentum. It ensured that policy concepts and draft code language could advance efficiently through each development phase. The group that was originally assigned consisted of Craig Farrell, who was there till 2024, Chet Moritz, Brandon Ogilvie until 2024, Eric Ostrander, Lisa Kerr, Mike Bates, Michelle Valagura, and Robert St. Clair and Steve Sokolowski of staff were always there. In 2025, Jake Orloff joined the group. I think this graphic is pretty helpful to understand when people talk about how long the housing code amendments have taken. It's really only that the work of the housing code amendments took that central phase there, which went from 8/22 of 2024 to 7/24 of 2025. But up to that point, we were working on the housing threat for the 2-day workshop. And since 7/24 of this year, we've been working on adoption. The gold asterisk there are all of the public meetings that we've had at regular intervals, either Joint Commission or Planning Commission. In between, you can see these blue asterisks at the bottom that show the housing focus groups that we got in between. But they were staged to bring the housing focus group work back to the public meeting. So we never went more than 4 housing focus group meetings without a public check-in. I'm gonna go over a little bit of backgrounds as a repeat for from the Planning Commission meetings, just to remind us where we've been. So the housing code amendments are a very important policy goal for the code rewrite project. We're implementing recommendations of the code audit. I'm gonna skip to the third slide in there that talks about the housing survey. I just like to touch on how significant that was. As I mentioned, it was in English and Spanish. We received 281 responses between January 18th and February 20th of 2024. 80% of the people who responded live in Cannon Beach. 60% own their homes, 36% rent, and 4% have some other arrangement. 78% of the respondents work, and 25% of respondents own a business in Cannon Beach. The average household size of respondents was 2. 81% of respondents, that was 243 respondents, said that Cannon Beach is failing to live up to its policy to encourage the development of housing which meets the needs of a variety of age and income groups, as well as special needs. And that policy language comes from the comprehensive plan. We asked the question of if the city was living up to the comprehensive plan policy. 89% of the respondents, another 243 people, said there's a lack of affordable housing in Cannon Beach. And we used terms from the county, from HUD, that they used from HUD to define affordability, to give people kind of a common language of affordability to use when they responded to the survey. The affordability was defined as housing that requires households to spend more than 30% of their income on housing. So, I'm gonna skip through these and jump to the vacant homes for seasonal use and short-term rentals, just to show a graphic that was produced by the county, which Earthworks helped with. We took all the permit information from all of the cities and the county, and we put it into different graphic portrayals. And the Cannon Beach, graphic here is startling in that it shows the blue equals vacant seasonal units, which equals second homes, and the gray is short-term rentals. Blue vacant seasonal units, to be clear, it could be second homes, it could also be other types of uses of homes, but that what is gray and what is blue is not available for people to live in. So I'm sorry, what is red and what is blue is not available for people to live in permanently. It's a much more severe problem in Cannon Beach when you compare those same unit counts in of the other cities. For example, Seaside has a lot of gray, which equals housing for year-round residents. So I'm going to jump to more of the charrette. I wanted to show some of the things that we've talked about before. When we met at the charrette, we talked about affordability using this information from the county, and Alyssa Gertler from the county attended the first day of the 2-day workshop. Slightly smaller version of the charrette. The recommended actions out of the charrette were to revisit the public benefits provision, enable middle housing such as duplexes, cottage clusters, and even triplexes, explore how to enable more ADUs, to design, to test middle housing prototypes on prototypical Cannon Beach sites. And what we did wind up pursuing mostly was the ADUs and the duplexes and the public benefits provision. I'm gonna end on this slide here, which is to say that when Jeff Adams was the community development director, we did talk about the public benefits proposal. So this was back in 2022. And what we did through the code amendments process with the housing focus group was really focus in on what this specifically could be. I'm going to end there and not talk about the whole code amendments package because I think it would be premature to do that. But if you'd like me to at some point during this session. Okay.
Does anybody have questions? So I think what we need to decide tonight is whether we want to continue with the process and have them come to the city council for a hearing or decide to start the process over. How do you feel about that?
From what I heard, we should use the information that's been created.
That's exactly what I heard.
Is there an option? I don't want to add another meeting. An option to have a dedicated workshop to this prior to having a public hearing about it, where we can have more of a back and forth with community members about items that are included within it. There's a couple specific ones, and there's been some suggestions from the community, no specific suggestions yet, but suggestions that there are other ways to accomplish these tasks. And see if those ideas can formulate through a public workshop. Or does that delay?
That seems to be the same thing as starting again. In other words, you're looking for other ways to create public benefits other than these, or you're scrapping the idea of public benefits, or, in other words, if you open it up to I think that we're either going to decide that this is the direction we want to go in, or if we're gonna open it for another community workshop, then we're starting over.
What I'm wondering is if we have a public hearing and that's the only thing that's on the agenda. And then we are getting community response. And so that's a question.
Yeah, we don't get any sort of back and forth in any ways, the downside I see to running it as a public hearing. To be able to make comments live or relatively live to,
There's no situation where we're ever doing that, really. That we don't have that.
the CD discussion, we had a pretty good back and forth.
Yeah.
Will we respond to that? How is that noticed? As a what?
Yeah, that's the question.
I have thought that, because of the questions about this, that, as much as we can offer the opportunity for, people to see what has been done and comment, probably the better.
The only thing that I would say was that, there were 2 planning commission meetings where that was addressed and people had the opportunity. I was at them, I listened to everything everybody said, and there was lots of public comment. So I don't understand why we need the same public comment, which is probably what would happen in another hearing. I don't understand why we have to hear, you can go back and listen to the public comment that was from the planning commission meetings, but I think that we're either gonna start again or go forward. I mean, that's my feeling.
Can we accomplish the same thing by we're going forward? But we're gonna listen one more time.
Well, public hearing, you have to.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the point of the public meeting.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what we'd be doing.
But I think what Eric is suggesting is that kind of pattern it like we did the discussion on Beach Elementary and allow people to converse with us about the subject.
Yeah.
I mean, is that what you're?
That was kind of an idea, just, because I know there's a lot of confusion from the community, things like the Measure 56 status, which is legally required, there's verbiage, it has to go out in a very specific way, but it's very confusing, and so that raised a lot of hackles about what the heck is this thing that I'm getting to change here, whatever it is you're changing.
But don't you think through the planning commission meetings, because I was in those, that they answered?
But I think it was pretty well answered.
Yeah.
For those that attended the meeting and saw the.
Or listen to it afterwards. So what other items do you feel to be in a given conversation?
Probably, I mean, the biggest issue that's in there that's commented on the most is the FAR adjustments that are in there and having. I mean, maybe in at the beginning of it, doing a public hearing and having a dedicated meeting for the public hearing and then having a presentation from Earthworks or Alyssa Gertler or someone that is a professional in housing code stuff.
All of this.
Present the rationale behind what is, why is this adjustment, and a couple of the sticky points, the parking, the FAR, and like, I feel like there was a third one was a sticking point that,
I think the public benefit.
the public, that's the third one, and giving a full explanation of what the intent was and where this is seen in other communities and how this was affected, so giving that sort of presentation.
Yeah, I would be.
Prior to the public hearing, and then having the public hearing with all the comments.
That's a great idea, have professionals give. Do you think that's doable, Marcy? I mean, to have a presentation so people understand. In other words, why the FAR reductions, why were they put in? how they fit into this whole picture. Why, you know, how the parking fits into the whole picture, where it's been done in other communities, how successful was it? All those kind of things. Is it possible to have that incorporated into a public meeting prior to the public meeting and then give people a chance to comment on it? Yes.
Yes, it's possible to present many of the reasons why we pursued those ideas and what other experts have to say about it, that was,
Right.
I would admit that that was a missing piece.
Yeah,
That if we had a full charrette, we could have spent time kind of having those important conversations with the community about those issues.
I told you so.
but anyway, so I did get, from listening to planning commissions, I did get the feeling that the concept of public benefits was kind of murky, and that people are gonna say, you know, in other words, the deduction of parking, reduction, that they are all part of it. They're all designed to provide incentives for more housing, but I don't think that that connection was made clear enough to make people feel that this is justified. So I think that it would be so great if people can understand that. And that's, I think, a basic tenet of the public benefits analysis, saying that if people understood it, they might be more receptive to it or not, you know.
But at least it would help them understand.
Right, why is this good? Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that most of the conversation about or most of what back and forth could happen in the planning commission hearing about the public benefit was more of a, why didn't you think of this? And the members of the planning of the house, especially the House of Focus Group, but some members of the planning commission who are very familiar with the idea said, but we thought of that and it didn't work. I mean, we do have to kind of walk through that much more thoroughly.
Yeah, I agree. And so that would be, I think that would be so helpful. Have a dedicated meeting with.
The presentations first and.
Yeah, open home.
And then have the public
hearing.
Yeah.
Have comments.
Everybody okay with that?
I'm fine with that. I think that's a good idea.
Okay, we just have to figure out when we're gonna do it.
Yeah, so what are you guys thinking?
March.
So obviously dedicated meeting that goes out of meetings in December, which is good, they're getting a little full.
Yeah.
Right now, in January, is what-
Right, maybe it's to the beginning of January.
so,
I'm
We
gonna
have
be
to make-
gone largely a lot.
We have to also make sure that our
Yeah,
experts are there.
Yeah, that's-
So we definitely want you, Marcy, we want the county.
Alyssa,
Yeah.
I'm
Maybe
not sure Alyssa will be able to make it unless we bring her down from Washington because anything that the other things done.
no, she's leaving. Oh, no.
She's leaving. I'm going to Washington to work.
Oh, gee, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But there, I mean, I would need some time to pull together the presentation and bring, and I do think I would love to have some other people besides just me
Right,
saying these things because
what about having?
people are probably, you know, they've heard me speaking out loud. There could be some people from the state, maybe from DLCD,
Like,
come and talk about the importance of, say, reducing parking
yeah,
and
maybe Crest, I mean, I'm thinking of people that are involved in our regional housing. We could have Chet.
Yeah. He's done so much work and just a nonprofit. You know, for affordable housing.
So March. Probably wouldn't sound.
March does not sound unreasonable, actually, to be able to pull some things out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm good with March.
Yeah, so pushing that off, where does that put us for the Measure 56 and all of that stuff that went out there? Are we have a maximum timeline on those
No.
sorts of.
That never goes stale. That never goes stale, but if the proposal does change significantly, we just need to send an updated notice to DLCD in a certain time period. So we'll be, we'll be watching. We'll be watching. the
Okay,
timelines.
so it wasn't a waste of money then, we're not gonna have to re-notice and we're not gonna notice, but send it, yeah.
Someone that would actually be a really good expert would be for me to bring Kevin back.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, who's that?
Kevin is an Herbs Works person that we brought here for the charrette.
Okay. Good, okay.
So do you guys want me to go ahead and send a poll out of all the available dates in March so that we can have this as a dedicated meeting? I'll give results to Marcy and we'll see if it looks for best for everyone.
Yep, sounds
All
good.
right.
Okay. Okay, anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda, we have, request for review of e-bike rental regulations.
Yes, Madam Mayor, in September, Ian Reed submitted a letter to the council requesting a review of the city's e-bike rental regulations. Council Mostrand requested to be added to future agenda or discussion. There was a gentleman here who didn't know, was here for a while and left.
no, oh, no.
Oh, Ian's on.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, thank you.
So the history, okay, so let's.
Ian, if you wanna go ahead and talk about your request?
Good evening, Ian.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome,
Loud and clear?
loud and clear.
All right. All right, here I am. Okay. Yeah, so essentially, just short, quick story. I purchased the bike shop a little more than a year ago, about a year and a half ago, and it was a rental shop that mostly specializes in those little trikes that some of you might have seen on the beach. And with time, they've added some two-wheeler bikes, and of course now with the existence of e-bikes and their popularity, people come in and they ask and inquire about e-bikes, and I always have to let them know that we're not allowed to rent them at the moment in Cannon Beach. And so the thinking was basically to think about, now that the e-bike industry has organized itself a little bit, there was no proper regulation or classification until not that long ago. Now there is. I've included the classifications in the letter, class 1, 2, and 3. And there are also emerging vehicles, which I can talk about later on, but I would obviously suggest that the city be mindful of those to make sure that there's guardrails for those. But yeah, so essentially the thought was a lot of the people that inquire about those are people that have various mobility issues or health challenges. And so they do want a bike, but it's harder for them. And these e-bikes turn out to be a great solution for that problem. In our case, in terms of the classes, class 1 essentially is your e-bike that is pedal assist, as we call it. It's basically an e-bike where there's only traction when the person is actually pedaling. So there's no traction other than that. On a class 2 e-bike, and the max speed is 20 miles. And then on a class 2 e-bike, you have that same pedal assist action, but you also have a throttle on the handlebars that allow you to ride the bike without pedaling. So, and then the third category are bikes that are just basically not really classified. So what we would like is to be able to rent e-bikes to the public. As far as the classification, we didn't specify, but I don't think people necessarily need a throttle, although most bikes that come from the manufacturers nowadays do come with a throttle, so essentially class 2.
Questions?
Yeah, so I don't know much about e-bikes. So a class 2 e-bike, when you say a throttle, that means you can just sit there on the bike and it moves up to 20 miles an hour and you're not pedaling at all.
That's right. Yeah.
As if you were on a little motorcycle.
Yes. Well, yeah. I just want to be careful because by law, the classifications are already well defined. An e-bike remains a bike that has pedals, and the pedals has to be real. You have to be able to actually actuate them. When I mentioned there was an emerging category that I'd be cautious about, I would call them, they're commonly called e-motos. They do have physically pedals, but some of them, the pedals don't even turn. So it's kind of a disguised e-bike or a disguised motorcycle. So then that would be closer to motorcycles because these bikes can actually reach far beyond 30 miles an hour. I've actually seen a couple in the streets in Cannon Beach this summer. That's why I would advise the city to consider looking into those. They're basically motorcycles that are not regulated. As I checked, I'm not an attorney, obviously, but I looked at the regulations, and according to what I've read, these, I'm kind of getting off topic, but these e-motos are supposed to be ridden only on public property since they're not regulation. They're not recognized by the state. That's what I've been reading. I'm not sure about that though. But what we're particularly in, sorry? That's the e-motos. That would be class 3 or unclassified vehicles.
Okay.
Yeah. We're at Fun Cycles, we're interested in class 1 and class 2, not the other classes.
So is the difference between an e-moto and a class 2 is the speed it can go, how fast it can go, and
If the pedals function as with a chain that actually use it as a bike.
pedals can function, but they don't have to be used.
Yeah, so a class 2, when you pedal, the max speed is normally 20 miles an hour. Now there are certain class 2s, and that's on the manufacturer where they have programs within the little panel on the handlebars that allows the rider to increase the maximum speed to 28 miles an hour. I believe that can be locked. I would have to verify that. There's also a possibility of literally just removing a throttle from a bike. So that can basically turn a class 2 into a class 1. But the difference with just, I inserted this whole e-moto thing. I just wanted to bring it up because I did see them in Cannon Beach this summer, which kind of surprised me. In this case, these bikes, they're motorcycles. You don't need to pedal. You can just hit the throttle and they'll go way beyond 30 miles an hour. Some of them, I believe, go up to 60 miles an hour. So that's why I just wanted to bring your attention to these particular motorcycles, because I noticed 2 of them this summer riding in town.
So I asked to have this gender added to the agenda, because I really think that we need to keep our code up to date with stuff like this. I think it would be important, but I think making sure it's properly regulated, and there's some thoughts that I had about regulation on, including rentals to not be conducted outside of a brick and mortar business, so not allowing the ride share, the line scooters and stuff like that, which is really messy up downtown areas on the places. So there's a responsible party that whatever it is reportable to. And then obviously adding this class 1, class 2, class 3 into our code, and then deciding which of these classes we would be willing to permit rental of weekend each.
I don't regulate class 1, 2, class 3. that traffic.
I got very interested. I agree with you. That's
Hey.
faster than our, downtown area.
Ian, what do people want to do with these bikes? Where are they riding?
Well, obviously, a lot of people that come to our store are looking to bike on the beach. So that's going to be a debate on at Fun Cycles whether we allow e-bikes on the beach, because there's another component, and that is it's not necessarily safety, but really more about maintenance. E-bikes with electronic components and sand and salt don't really go well together. At the moment, it would be riding in the streets. One of the missions that I'm at Fun Cycles, we're trying to promote the idea of using bikes more in Cannon Beach. Cannon Beach is a relatively easy city to bike. It's a small city. So having more biking would be nice. I already have clients coming to the store that have had to deal with the traffic in town, and they realize, hey, if we rent a bike, we can actually navigate through town a lot more easily. So I think there's a lot of that. A lot of that would be people just wanting to ride in town, either take the trails. When people do rent to ride in town, they often ask where some of the trails. Obviously, there's not that many trails, but we'll point them to the trails by the creek, by the river and the ponds, and but people will use the streets to navigate between Midtown and the North End.
Do you think there's a safety issue about the beach that we have to consider?
Plus, state parks is gonna say it.
State park is, it's in our, that's why it's permitted on state parks.
State parks permits class 2.
Yeah.
That's what their
Yeah.
state permitting says. Class 1s and 2s are treated as if they're bicycles on the beach, and so you can ride on state park trails and on the beach. So if you own one.
Where you can't.
Yeah, so it's good.
Or do we want, from a safety perspective, do we want to encourage class 2 on the beach? Well, I guess that would be.
I think the rental agency would say, just for maintenance purposes, would say, no.
And also because so many people have their dogs on the beach.
Right.
We don't have
And they're
jurisdiction.
chasing them.
Huh?
Right.
We don't have jurisdiction on the beach.
That's right.
But
I think
we
the
got
rent-
jurisdiction over a rental agency renting class 2 bikes to ride on the beach. That's what we're talking about. But we can't stop the state parks from permitting people who own class 2 bikes to ride on the beach. We have to consider if we are, whether we think it's a good idea from a safety perspective to have rentals of class 2s on the beach.
But Ian, would you regulate that your equipment would not be taken on the beach? If you.
Well,
were-
we don't know yet at the moment. I mean, obviously, when people come, they're looking to ride on the beach, and when it comes to e-bikes, if people can't rent them, what's happening right now is people are bringing their bikes and they're riding on the beach. There's many e-bikes on the beach throughout the summer. They're always there. People bring them and they ride on the beach. So those who do their homework, they'll realize that they can't rent them, so they just basically bring their own. If you go walk the beach, you'll see many of those bikes on the beach. I see them all the time. So we're just suggesting to be able to allow people to use them for those who can't bring an e-bike. When it comes to rentals of this kind of equipment, I know bike shops like in Seaside, for instance, that rent e-bikes, they'll have policies like not allowing people to rent e-bikes and drive them somewhere else. So they have to be ridden within Seaside or the Seaside vicinity. But yeah, e-bikes are already being used. It's a common vehicle. It's a little bit like the electric car now. It's just a matter now of, for us, it's just kind of keeping up with what's going on in the industry, which is pretty much everybody asks for e-bikes right now.
How many bikes do you rent a day in the summer?
Sorry?
About how many rentals do you do for bicycles a day in the summer? Do you know?
I would say an average of 50 bikes per day. And that would be on a period of, I don't know, I would say an average of 5 to 6 hours.
You said 50?
50, yeah.
And you only,
That includes the fun cycles, I'm assuming.
Sorry?
That includes the fun cycles.
Yeah. That includes the fun cycle. Actually, the majority are fun cycles. Yeah, I'd say about 90% are the trikes, and then there's about 10% that are the two-wheelers.
It's a little off topic, but what do you think of our bike infrastructure? Are there things that we need to do to encourage biking?
Well, where do you want me to start?
at a different meeting.
I have a lot of ideas for sure. I mean, I know I read the transportation plan. We've also been chatting. Some of the people in that bike in Cannon Beach have been chatting together. There's a few priorities. One of them would be finding a way to connect mid and north town to Levana, South End, without having to ride the curves, which are very tricky. And I hear that quite often throughout the summer. Even people that bring their own bikes and end up engaging in those curves, they get pretty scared. So that would be one thing. Probably looking at, I guess I read some of the regulation, increasing places to park bikes, I guess. We can't technically tie a bike to a tree or to, a signpost, or so I guess having more racks. Eventually, finding clearer routes. Well, I'm currently working at documenting routes for people to use in Cannon Beach. Obviously, there's not that much, but there are some clear routes. So we're trying to document that so people, when they come, they can actually find ways to navigate in Cannon Beach and offer maybe routes that are less crowded or less busy with cars. So there's a lot of things I think that could be done to improve the biking experience in Cannon Beach. I spent a lot of my life in a very, very cold part of this world, and somehow people still biked in the winter. And in Cannon Beach, it's a lot warmer, so it's a lot easier to bike here year round. So I can easily see that being a great way to move around. I know there's rain, but we all have rain jackets.
I'd much rather see bikes riding down our residential streets than cars.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
Well, obviously our code needs some update.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, people are already riding either their bikes or our bikes in the streets. We're not asking for something necessarily excessively new, other than introducing the possibility of having e-bikes. And I think most bikers, like if you speak to somebody who's really into biking, a lot of them are not necessarily shifting to e-bikes. E-bikes have, from the looks of it so far, has allowed a crowd of people that were not necessarily into biking to actually get into biking, because they have that power that helps them propel their bike. Most bikers are people that have been biking for a long time. A lot of them don't transition to e-bike. So e-bike is not the ground-breaking rule, but there's a lot of demand for them. We do sell them. We have a few in the stores. So it'd be interesting to be able to rent them out and allow, especially the people that have accessibility issues. We constantly have people coming in that have had surgeries, knees, hips, and e-bike certainly helps them to be able to move around.
I just, again, I don't know that much about e-bikes, it's just I'm trying to understand. So the class 2, when you don't need to use pedal assist, How is that biking?
Well, most people, so why was it even introduced in the first place? That's probably an industry, a bike industry related problem. But most people that have these bikes, and I would like actually to suggest that if, for those of you who are interested to learn a little more about them, to maybe we could have a meeting, and you're welcome to come to the store and have a look at what they really are and what they're about. I'm happy to show them so you can actually see how they operate. But to answer your question, most people, and if you walk, drive a car, and you see people on a bike in Cannon Beach, I'd say probably 80% of those people are people that are riding e-bikes. So it's already here. And to answer your question, those people are usually riding Class 2 bikes, because Class 2 bike is the bike that's sold the most. It's actually very difficult to buy a Class 1 bike. I have one right now in the shop, but most e-bikes are Class 2 at the moment by default.
Does that mean, is that for like, for example, you would pedal and then when you wanted to go uphill, you would just stop pedaling and the bike would take you?
So yeah, so people use it for either providing a little more power if they're going up a hill and they can't keep up, or if they need to maneuver a little faster, they'll use it just to give it a little bit of a boost if they can't pedal fast enough to get that traction they need. But most people don't ride on the throttle. First of all, you go through your battery quite fast. Most people pedal. There's different settings as far as I haven't mentioned that, but as far as the assist itself, there are different settings, and that applies for Class 1 and Class 2. So you can have an eco or low setting, you can have a medium setting and a faster setting. And that, that's defined by the user. So people that want to have a little more support, then they can go for a faster setting. But as far as using the throttle, I don't really see people riding on the throttle all the time.
Okay.
Most people just, yeah.
Because they would burn up their batteries so fast that.
Oh yeah, you'd burn your battery for sure. It wouldn't take very long. And I would say too that again, those e-bikes, they can be like, I can remove a throttle if I really want to. If I have concerns about somebody, I can just remove the throttle. They can just be unplugged and taken out. But so far, like I said, the majority of the industry is currently selling Class 2 bikes, and that's what people are usually buying. And things are going quite well in general, as long as people, follow the rules of the road when it comes to biking, and ideally wear a helmet. It's not required. I think 16 and above is required, but ideally wear a helmet, and then people are safe.
We have 3 e-bikes. And so if you want to see one, then ride one, have a helmet, everything, come over and we can show you. But that's how Gibb commutes to work every day. We only have one car, and I think that's why the e-bike was really invented. There's a lot of people that live in big cities that regular transportation was just so hard for them, but maybe they weren't fit enough to ride a regular bike, or maybe it was just too much to ride a regular bike as far as they needed to go, and it got them there much faster. And Gibb will say, in the summertime for him getting to work, and he pedals, he mostly pedals his bike. He beats me. We can leave the house at the same time, and he gets to our shop like 2 or 3 minutes before I do, because you're not trying to fight with, it's the following rules of the road. But they're fun, and I fell and it hurt. But I have a helmet on. That's good.
So Ian, the primary use of these on the beach and on the street, are there any multi-use trails in the area? I mean, there are portions to one side of the ponds and then along the creek.
Yeah.
There's cave trail, and bikes are currently allowed there. Are there other multi-use trails in any of the state parks around here, or?
Not that I know of. I mean, I know that people that come here and bring their own bikes do go up Ecola Park Road into Ecola Park, but obviously, I mean, they're sharing the road with cars, so that's kind of tricky. But as far as I know, there isn't, other than, people that ride mountain bikes and want to ride off trail, they'll go to Clutchie Creek. The only other trails I know of are probably up north in Warrenton, and right now they're working in Wheeler and Tillamook. They're working on the Salmon Berry Trail, but that's the closest that I know of for as far as Cannon Beach goes. It would definitely be interesting if there was a way to navigate through Cannon Beach. I think ideally 2 ways, one closer to the ocean, kind of a boardwalk style, and then maybe one that's a little more of a commuter trail.
So is everyone in agreement that we would like to update the ordinance?
To allow rental?
Allow rentals,
I think so.
yeah, okay,
We specified class 1 and 2.
just wanted to, I just that's my,
I agree, and I think, Ian, if it goes over 20 miles an hour, aren't you supposed to be able to have a license? I mean, you have to be licensed driver to ride those.
Yeah, 16. Well, first of all, e-bikes, you got to be 16 or over. In theory, like legally, you're supposed to be 16 or above to ride an e-bike. And yeah, those, I don't know. I'm not sure about a license. I'd have to check about that because frankly, I don't even sell or work with these bikes at all. I kind of stay away from those because they're considered non-classified at the moment. So I really, as a bike shop, I don't particularly want to work on those. But it would make sense that there would be probably a requirement to have a license, for sure, a helmet. And then when it comes to the e-motos, that's even probably more requirements there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's an ordinance in Oregon.
I can,
Yeah,
I'm trying to
Yes.
see.
The attorney.
Well, class 1 and 2, no, class 3, you can't legally ride it on the roadway. Like you said, class 3 is basically a motorcycle.
okay,
So, class 1 and 2, you don't need a license to ride, you have to operate no bicycle. Okay.
So we also prioritize bike infrastructure and transportation system plan and make sure we've got bike racks that are making it possible for people and, get people out of their cars and onto bikes. And I think that.
I think the tax committees started talking a little bit about bike racks.
Yeah, so TSP is a retreat agenda item. Would you guys be okay if we put this on the January work session to review language? Because our December meeting already has 6 items on it.
Yep.
Okay, and then so we'll put it in January, review the language, and then if you guys are talking back to the option.
Okay,
And then we're
I
gonna.
really like meetings with like a whole bunch of agenda items.
so be quiet. Okay, thank you, Ian, and we'll talk more about it in January.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, next on the agenda, we have the Tolvana Hall lease discussion. And Andrew from the Tolvana Arts Colony is here. And hopefully we can go through this quickly.
That was what I would say, my goal, and this is the quickest agenda item today, so let's go.
Only 3 highlights.
Yeah, and is everybody okay with those 3 highlights?
Essentially, we punted on the uses to just make it so that Andrew gets to come up with the idea and present it to us. Which is,
Yeah.
I really like.
yeah.
Do you have any
That's
comments?
it. You've been doing this for a while.
And I like having the deed as part of the packet, right? Yeah, that was good. That was great.
Yeah.
So we ready to adopt it in another, future meeting?
We'll do that.
Groundhog Day is right. Do you have any?
No,
Okay.
I just want to hear if you need me, okay.
Everything good?
Right, December 9th is on the agenda.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, that was good.
Okay, your trophy. Andrew, your trophy will be in the mail.
Okay. It was the 2.5 hours that I spent.
I think we got some work done. Okay, Next we have municipal code, burning update. Bruce?
Yes, sir. Man, I'm sorry. From your authority. Well, council reviewed the revised code language at the August 12th session and requested revisions and clarification. Attachment A is the red line for our municipal code showing the requested revisions and clarification. Revisions include expanding definitions for clarity and increasing the fine. Council also requested confirmation that a measure 56 will not be required and will not.
So our city attorney basically did this, right?
Yes,
Sure, yeah. So Jen took it, was that the initial draft, and I made a couple changes. To her draft, so she went or something, but I'm happy to clarify anything I can.
Did you work on it or did Ashley?
I did.
Oh.
I think actually they, it started with Ashley, did a couple early revisions, and then, okay, yeah, it takes all care.
I think it was.
Oh, good.
So I have two questions. In the definition of open burn, C, so page one of the everything. It has a exclusion for propane, natural gas, or briquette barbecues. Where do like smokers and Traegers and stuff like that fit within that?
I don't know what those are, so you're going to tell me.
Like the pellet barbecues, they're not briquettes. They're a different way of cooking food and a dedicated cooking device.
And essentially, they're just smoke emitters.
Yes. It makes
They're
them
not an open
delicious.
fire, it's a smoke emitter.
Okay, so maybe we add in, did you get that? Jen?
Is there better generic language rather than having to try to name every
Name
single
everything.
thing that fruits doesn't have?
If there was a way to sort of just describe all barbecues, I just don't know them.
I was just concerned is briquette barbecues specifically, which you would
Oh, just get rid of briquette.
maybe.
That would work. Yeah. I see nothing wrong with that yet.
And then the other question I had was about the prohibition on short-term rentals. Is this? Sorry, this is 808040, A5, prohibited at short-term rentals. Is this? If the property has it, nobody at the property can use it, so the owner of the property cannot have a recreational fire in their backyard.
That would be.
That was the intent.
That is a very good point, though. It doesn't say that, does it?
So if you're licensed as a short-term rental and the owner is staying there,
It's a ban for all short-term rentals, and that's for an unfortunate reason.
okay.
Because we talked with Daniel, and if we were to say only while it was being rented, how are we gonna enforce it? And so the easiest way to do it was say, if you have a permit, you cannot do this.
Alright, I figured that's what it's fine to be clear, like if somebody is living in their house and they have a short-term rental license, they're not allowed to have a recreational fire in their yard anymore.
Right, and so that's also kind of what we do with garbage reduction. So if you, it's not quite the same, but you know, if you have a short-term rental, even if you're not actively using it, you have to maintain the service, we do not allow you to reduce it at all. So it's just kind of one of those things that if you have it, whether you're using it or not, you have to follow those rules.
And that'll be, all this new verbiage would be in their newest renewal packet, right?
Yeah, so they're gonna, we'll do a whole thing about giving them time, notifying them, let everyone know, because they're gonna have to, you know, coordinate with owners, remove things that they need to, and so that way all property managements, everyone will receive notice. And then I think when we talked about this, we, for the adopted ordinance, we were gonna put it 2 months out, like 3 or 4 months out before we go in place. Obviously, timing on this one, if you were to adopt it in December, 30 days before it's effective, which would be January on a normal one, but we can say this would be effective beginning of April 1st or something, whatever we wanted on the dates. But we want to give people, we want to give staff time to get notice out to them, and the property owner's trying to get things straightened out.
I think
Do
it's
we,
good.
do we need to clarify that language though for number 5?
I don't know if we need to clarify that, or, cause I feel we just get extra word, but,
That's what it says.
yeah, I just wanted to clarify it out loud.
May I address the council on that particular item?
Keep it short.
Thank you. At one of the meetings, it was discussed that, upon renewal of the license, so that it gives them plenty of time, rather than the 3 or 4 months. It may be 11 months in that case, but I think it would be, kind of for the council to allow them to have the, fire pits until their, renewal, their license goes up for renewal.
We did talk about that.
Yeah, we did.
That separate records, separate.
That would be
Implement.
separate. Because you have to map, you have to see who is applicable, who's not.
Then I think, we ought to just give them
Give them a runway.
a nice runway, a 6-month runway possibly.
What preparation did they have to do, thinking about?
Removing infrastructure from the backyard,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, 6 months.
Removing the pits, so whatever exists.
Removing whatever they've got now, adding a propane one, if they wanna have something.
Right. So yeah, let's do it 6 months.
Is that, you want to do May 1st,
Yeah, what did you say is on your agenda? December.
December 9th?
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's compromise. Okay, any other direction on that? Okay, thanks. Okay, Andrew.
I just got a little piece of paper. If you guys want to take a look at it, this is my actual screen on my current Everbridge.
My God, that's the hair in here.
This will.
All right. Cool, so what you're looking at, is basically my screen on Everbridge, Suite, which is what I'm looking to switch to, so switching from Nixle, what we currently operate as for our emergency alerting or electronic emergency system, and I want to switch to Everbridge Suite. They're both Everbridge products, so Everbridge is what the state of Oregon basically offers to counties, to municipalities for free. It's a free service for us to utilize it. And basically, everybody is going to the Everbridge, so not Nixle. So right here is just my screen that we have a visual of what the user. So we currently have classic alerts. So if you go to like our City of Cannon Beach emergency page, we say, hey, sign up for Nixle, hey, sign up for classic alerts. We would fall underneath that classic alerts just as the City of Cannon Beach. So Seaside just went through it, county already uses it. So basically, this is my profile and I can select what, as a user, what I want to receive notifications for. And on the bottom there, you can see, I can select up to 5 different zip codes. So let's say I live in Cannon Beach, but I work in Astoria, I could get alerts for Astoria as well. And so it's, the program and the software itself is a lot more user friendly, not only for the individual, but for me, the sender, or whoever's authorized to send messages. There's templates that are available in the new one, to where I can just click the template, click send, whereas in Nixle right now, there's no template, like capabilities, basically I have to type a limited amount, like for text messages, I think I get like 138 characters, which is like nothing if I want to send a text message out. So really, it's just email platform only, where this new Everbridge is email, text, call, There's a way for me to track it to where if I send you a notification and I want you to respond if you received it or not, it'll say that it never responded, yes, no, so I can kind of track who is doing that. So the capabilities of this new platform is far superior to what we're currently using, so that's kind of why I'm switching.
And what does it, like a user who now has Nixle, what will it have to do to get on this new system?
You're automatically put into, you're just transferred into the new system. So if you're signed up to Nixle, everybody that we currently have signed up is just automatically transferred over. You would, what's that?
Win-win.
Yeah, definitely. So you would just have to log into the account. So if you have a Classic Alerts account, you just have to log into your account and update what you want to receive messages for. Cause there's a possibility where, like Cannon Beach probably wasn't in there before because you weren't in the system. So you'd have to just update, hey, like go in there. But you're currently in there, in the system, you're already added in there. So. If
You're added in there, but you need to go in and make these.
You will need to go in there and make the selection of what you wanna receive, cause you like, you know, I may wanna, like, I could care less about fall, but I wanna know about thunder. And then you guys might have different selections.
So physically, how will people know how to do that?
It's the same as like on our website right now, you go to Classic Alerts and you just click on the link, it's the same process. And so there's a little education that's gonna need to come with it, like.
You're ready to do that education.
Yep, yeah, so I've already started to take classes and training courses with county, as well as everybody who's authorized, that will be authorized within the city. We have another course coming up here in a few weeks. Cause there's actually like a designated representative that gets assigned to us. And so if I have any questions or any issues, she's there to train us or, with Nixle there wasn't, but yeah, so there'll be like, public education and notifications going out saying, hey, we are transitioning to this new product. Here's how you sign up, kind of just like the Nixle.
Okay, so there is a end user requirement, so all the people that are currently receiving.
Correct, yeah, 'cause
They're
Nixle.
gonna have to go make adjustments.
Yeah, cause Nixle, you don't have to do any of that, like, if you sign up for Nixle, you just get whatever the heck Cambridge Public, you know, Safety wants to send you, even if you don't want it, you're gonna get it.
So if you don't do anything, what do you get?
Nothing.
You get nothing?
You would get nothing, unless you're already signed up to get Classic, if you're already signed up through Classic Alerts, then you would get whatever you originally did, which is like through the county or through Seaside.
You know that from past experience that there is gonna be a lot of people who are going to need help. They're gonna need to understand this. It's gonna throw them for a loop. Really.
I'm already going through that, which is with Nixle and, during that last tsunami watch and everything. There was a huge kind of follow through, I never received this, I never received that. So I think with whatever product I do use, there's always gonna be that, and so I'm prepared for that. You know, I'm prepared to promote it and, you know, do gatherings here where, you know, hey, come to the chamber and I'll show you how to sign up.
That would be great.
Yeah, and so I'm fully prepared to do that because I'm aware there's gonna be a lot of people who are like, I don't know how to sign up, or I don't like that.
Well, and that could be something you could do a copy of the counselors.
We can't do that anymore.
Yeah, we just can't be voyeurs on the back end and watch and see what happens.
How are you gonna learn then?
Yeah, I think it'd actually be a good thing to bring up at property council.
Yes.
That it's happening and that there will be training. And, you know, and it is possible to provide one at property council.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Lisa, how long, before implementation, do you think?
That just, it really depends. I mean, I can roll it out next week. Because I've already done training, but that's kind of where, you know, if you think we like, hey, 3 months, you know, 3 months from now, you know, that way I can do public education, get people pre-signed up while still utilizing Nixle and kind of go through that transition, because I don't know if it's the best time in the dead of winter when we do send out notifications to kind of do that switch. So maybe right after the winter going into spring, Because I know during winter time, I sent a lot of, like last winter, there's a lot of notifications that I send out.
Yeah.
So maybe start of spring, we roll it out, and in between now and then, I do educations, I do sit downs, I do coffee with counselor, I do.
Do things in the utility bills, like this is coming, you know, look for this.
You know, here's how to sign up, go to our page, that seems to be the easiest way is, go to the page, click on this link, Rusty set up a really good, just hit click on the link and it goes right to where you need to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said Nixle was, free to the city to utilize this, Everbridge suite, same?
Yep, yeah, so it's underneath the parent company Everbridge, which is free to the state of Oregon, county, municipalities.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's no extra talk, no charge or anything. What's really cool with this new one though, I'm gonna have the capability of sending out iPause messages. So if you're not familiar with iPause, that's like an Amber Alert, it's integrated public alerting and warning system. And so whenever you buy like a smartphone, your phone comes with these alerts automatically programmed to be on, you have to go into them and turn them off. But so for instance, like if I wanted to send out a mass notification to everybody, this, it's basically force push to everybody within a certain distance of cell phone towers. And so you wouldn't have, like, if it's like a really critical alert, even if you're not signed up for this, but you have a smartphone, that could push you a message. So that could have been really handy during like the last tsunami advisory where it's like, they get off the beach, but a lot of people didn't get that message because they weren't probably signed up. So I would have that capability before, which is pretty cool.
And won't some of those messages push through even if you have some of the notifications turned off on your phone? Like, there's some notifications, aren't there some notifications you can't shut off, or am I?
As far as I know, is if you turn off your phone, the emergency alert, like I don't want because if you go like your settings, and go to emergency alerts, there's one tab that says like Amber Alerts, you can literally turn all those off. Emergency alerts, testing alerts. So if you were the user don't want that, yeah, you could turn them on.
Maybe some of us need that, part of the tree.
I mean, I hope I never have to use that, but I mean, having the capability is really handy, so.
So it sounds like a great idea, but don't do it in the winter.
Don't do it in the winter, yeah, they plan on that, so I'll start kind of doing the public education thing, yeah.
What does this option mean, non-precipitation?
Because the sun's gonna be out.
Yeah, no, like that, so I couldn't get. Some of these lists are super long.
Let's go on a picnic.
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty cool what you can sign up to get, so I think users and I think the community will like going to it. If they're not already in class for it, so.
Do we ever have that here?
Yeah.
Notification is 22 on this, all that listing, all the.
Yes, you gotta sign up and look at it
Those are all.
to figure it out. Yeah. Any other questions?
Sounds like a great plan.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to take myself or two.
Okay, let's have it. Okay, next on our agenda, we have the Canby Elementary follow-up.
This, I have a question, and that's, do you want me to review the report for the benefit of those people that are, not familiar as you are? Or do you want to get started in stuff? If we go through the report, we'll be talking about things like, the programs that you might want to do, that sort of thing, and the delivery systems. So, I'm ready to go either way. It would probably take 5 or 10 minutes to do the whole report.
I think it'd be better to do the discussion first, myself.
Okay, like to discover, okay, great.
Everybody okay with that? Okay, you'd like to start?
Okay. We've been talking about next steps for this project. In terms of next steps, it seemed making a decision on the construction delivery system and to start the selection process would be in order. That goes outside of all the details or the plans that there might be at some point, you're gonna have to have a delivery system. And one of the points of the report is that you need time to be able to go ahead and go through the process. And not wait until you're done with your design. There are commonly two variations in selection criteria and process that come into play in deciding on a design professional or architectural engineer and or builder. One is a hard bid, the other is construction manager, general contractor, or called CMGC. When, next thing to talk about is that in either case, the owner develops or causes to be developed a program. A program is the details in a written form of what you want to see in the project. It might be one kitchen, 2 classrooms, 1 garden area, and 20 cars for parking for 20 cars. Those are the kind of things you need for a program. You need that to be able to go ahead and get your architect started. And you need the architect to get started in order to get your CMGC or your hard bid out there. Select the architect and engineer. We've gone through a study through the staff and some citizens working with engineering backgrounds for the selection committees. On the design professionals on the board, we've used David Veneta, Doug Craner, and Les Sinclair. There's 2 generic models, as I mentioned, the hard bid and the CMGC. The hard bid is you have a set of plans that's complete and you go to bid and somebody says, I will build it for this much. A competitor would say, I will build it for this much. Pretty much you have to look at the qualifications, that sort of thing, but it's gonna come down to just the dollars. And the construction manager, general contractor, you hire somebody on and their fees are split into 2 parts. One is the beginning where they're working with the architect and they are providing information. It might be cost information, it might be material availability, all kinds of things. So there's a dollar fee with that. It might be, $75,000 or something. And then there's another fee, and that's usually in the form of a fraction. And that's for once they get to the point that they're doing all of the work and they're hiring out all of the subcontractors, et cetera, they will receive a portion of the work that is given out to the subcontractors. And so that's the second fee. So once they get done with the first part, they will have the fee will come into place. Both of those are decided at the very beginning of the selection process. So there's no, games being played with it. The architect and the engineer, or the architect and the CMGC will prepare 3 or more bid packages for subcontractors. They will go out to bid on those. You'll be able to see the bids. It's a public bid process. And they will choose the most qualified, including the cost on the project. The downside of the CMGC model I find is the time it takes to start the design and select the CMGC. Usually the design professional team is hired to get a start on the project. That can take 8 to 12 weeks. Contracts need to be developed and we're pretty much past that benchmark. And a project advertisement period starts. Take 3 or 4 weeks to get to the level of attention you want to hire a design professional. Once the project's been advertised, there's another 3 or 4 weeks for the CMGC to gather their subcontractors. City will want to review proposals for the team and contractors in proposal, fees to be charged for phases 1 and 2, and the qualifications of the management team. It's also important to evaluate how many projects the team has done together. That is pretty much the basis of the CMGC and the architect when you're hiring an architect. And in my mind, we're successfully using the CMGC model for the construction of the city hall and the police station.
Bruce,
Yes,
that's why I kind of wanted to have a discussion first.
sure.
Because, I'm not there. I'm not at a consensus. for going ahead with a park yet.
Okay.
And the reason I'm not is because there were lots of voices that we heard at the last meeting who wanted an indoor recreation center and lots of voices that don't want a big parking lot. In addition, we heard that the farmer's market, a lot of the vendors like it where they are. So I am not at the point where, I'm curious if the council is willing to ignore all those voices and say they have a mandate. I'm not one of those who would want to do that. I think that what we need to do, the steps we need to take are, one, deciding what our budget is gonna be. Period. And then I think we have to open up the gym, have an open house there. We had a lot of people who said they wanted to see what that structure looks like. And three, make an informed decision after we looked at the facility.
But your own words at the last meeting were that you agreed because it's in a tsunami zone and we shouldn't have a gathering.
That's true,
For a
that's
community
true,
center.
but I'm not willing to ignore all of the feedback that we've heard. I want to see what we have there. I want to make an informed decision. I'm not willing, you could have hundreds of people in the park too, and have that be in the tsunami zone. So, you know, it
But
is.
hundreds of people, park isn't a violation of state statutes, hundreds of people
It isn't.
inside the facility.
Right, there's only a limit you could have, but that was. So if it's
An immediate question I have is, could we even legally go into that gym right now and have a meeting?
Not a meeting to look at it. I don't know if we.
Well, I don't,
That is a problem.
yeah,
Because there's no power,
yeah.
there's no emergency lighting, anything.
I think we've had some new, some people that have moved here since we had those tours. And maybe we could do those individually, and we had a person at Coffee with the Counselors who hasn't lived here that long, he's never seen it.
Yeah, it does seem like we've been there, done that.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
We have been there, done that. I think it was, what, 5 years ago?
Probably,
Yeah.
but I,
So I think that, you know, that's quite a long time ago.
starting that whole process over,
I don't want to start it over again. I'm not even suggesting that. Budget. And then we could have the people who want to see the inside of the gym, see it, and then we make an informed decision. I don't see that it's starting over again at all. In fact, I think that process could happen quite quickly.
but it's, you know, people can organize and sign a petition and it's, there's a few loud voices and, you know, different concerns, which are all legitimate, but, you know, I think we've heard enough that we understand what the options are.
Well, at the last meeting, some of the people who spoke were not the usual loud voices who spoke in favor.
where were they when you had the election?
They probably voted.
Yeah, how did they vote?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's not, I think that's.
Yeah.
Well, I think that some of the people that have been speaking didn't wanna spend. It was a monetary issue for them.
Where?
Right, so they voted. One of these days, I'm gonna elbow you in the ribs, you know? So I can almost tell you that some of these voices that are speaking probably didn't vote for the project because of the cost.
But the cost has just gone up.
And one thing that, I think that we really need to bear in mind is Ashley made it very clear that we had to do a significantly different project. And a significantly different cost, lower. So those are things that we really need to keep in mind, and I believe that, that's one thing that Counselor Hayes and Counselor Ostrander were very cognizant of when they came up with the ideas that they did, that it was significantly less cost, but they were both plans that could be built on.
And I firmly believe that if we get our police station done, we get our city hall done, we do something with Camp Beach Elementary, and then our next project is gonna be figure out how we're gonna have a community center somewhere else.
I'm just saying that because I heard so many voices against, you know, totally discounting the idea of a indoor recreation center. This has nothing to do with what I want to see. This has to do with my distaste for just saying we have a mandate, when I don't think we have a mandate. I think we have a mandate maybe amongst us, but it is true that there were many people who spoke at the last meeting against just making it a park. I mean, I don't see, we heard Andrew give us numbers tonight. I think they're fairly accurate, actually. So that's all I'm saying. I think we should come up with how much do we want to spend on whether it's a park or a recreation center? That might give us our answer right there.
It does.
But we have, I'm sorry, but I didn't see a really detailed budget.
Well, and I think asking, there are going to be people that do have that kind of a gym, and I know that is there, and I know that is a real thing, but I believe that most of those people, if they knew that a recreation facility was coming and on the forefront in our vision for the next, 5 years, that they would be more understanding and more willing to say, yes, this does sound like a good place to have a meeting place where we have a nice structure and we have a nice park.
We're gonna have
And a safe place.
Okay.
Well, and I understand that too, but if we try and pave that path in a positive way, that it's keeping our community safe, and I don't know that it's the right answer.
And I don't either. That's why, for me, the real issue and the issue on the ballot, I think, was the amount of money. So we came up with a budget, what we were willing to spend on this facility, whether it's a park or recreation center, and we come up with a budget, and with public input, and that budget forecloses a recreational center, then it's a done, then the discussion's over, then the park is left.
I think what closes the recreational center is the TLT restricted dollars.
No, I disagree with you entirely. The recreational center.
You will disagree with me, but.
The recreation center be open to the public. It'll be open to tourists as well, to come in and play pickleball or to use it. No, I don't think that's true. It's not gonna be a community recreation center. It would be a recreation center.
You can say that, but. That's really a misuse of those dollars, is to just say that, the community can come and use it. It's really for the substantial use of a visitor.
It's for anybody to use.
Well,
It's really for the substantial use of a visitor.
you would have to figure the proportionate percentage. Right, and to justify it in that way, so you're looking 20% tourism, 80% community, then you could use 20% of those TLT dollars. I'm just throwing a number out there, it doesn't mean that I think that's the right number. So there is still going to be a general obligation for a community center. We can't use all TLT. You're right.
No, I didn't understand.
So I proposed a
I'm
budget.
sorry, I have to hear that.
I proposed a budget at the last meeting. And part of what the pushback was the borrowing. And so I proposed a budget that would require no borrowing.
No more borrowing.
Well, we've already got some borrowing and it includes that money that we're paying off.
I mean, if you feel comfortable saying you have a mandate, go and vote for it, that's fine. I'm just saying that I don't feel like I have a definitive mandate, and I'd like to see us come up as a council with our budget. How
Well,
much
let's
do
see
we want
what's
to
in the
spend?
budget.
Huh?
I was starting to have that conversation, but, I came up with a budget of $6.1 million.
You're not the whole council. You're one person who came up with
I
it.
think Gary's attempting to represent from the last meeting about this, what.
You want to set a budget, let's discuss a budget.
Okay,
So
that's
at
great.
the last meeting, I presented a budget of $6.1 million that uses essentially the money that has already been dedicated to the project.
Yeah,
And that money that would come in for the project, over the next year.
okay.
And that came in at about 6.1 million. So can we use that as a starting point to discuss a budget? And if none of you wanna look at, okay, well, where does that leave us with the gym? You know, months ago, $6 million would get us, you know, the gym so that the public could go in. So do we wanna spend $6 million so we can open the doors of the gym?
I don't know.
But with no additional
No,
upgrades to the building, no additional upgrades to the site.
I've heard.
And
I've heard- I can't-
Based on our sequence for them.
Would you let, Todd,
Todd's gonna speak for Todd. And Todd is a member of our commission.
But I'm also the most knowledgeable person sitting in this room about the budgets.
but this is our,
Don't feel like you wanna understand or discuss.
we need to have this I think we need to have this conversation.
our conversation.
So the last thing I wanna see is come in and say we can do this project for $2.5 million, and then it comes in at 7. And we're in the same place that we were before. I mean, I think we need to be realistic here, and I don't think we want a barn. I don't want a barn. So
I wanna do water aerobics.
is $6.1 million a reasonable budget?
For
the entire project.
yeah, but we don't know if that project that you propose can be done for $6 million. We don't know that.
Well, if you set a budget and then you go to a contractor or to whomever and you say, this is our max budget, this is our wish list. What of this can we, these are the things that we have to have, these are the things we'd like to have, maybe we can do them later. If it exceeds the budget, hey, if it fits in there, great. So I think that a max budget of, would just say $6 million. I like $6 million, yeah, that's pretty enough.
I'm probably more like, maybe I said a little low, but maybe we should say.
I was gonna say 7.
Maybe we should say 7, so
Well,
that we are not in that position of, oops, it's gonna cost us, or maybe we can get that.
but if you give them,
Indoor, outdoor space that would really serve the community.
if you start with you never wanna go in at your highest number. I personally think we should go to somebody and say, we've got $4 million, knowing that we have a couple million more that they could come back with.
But that whole process is gonna take time.
And I understand that thinking, but that's kind of what created some of the problem we ended up in is. Somebody said it's $4 million and then all of a sudden it's 12. And so but like you, I would like to set a reasonable budget and live within it and see what we can get for it.
And then there's always ways with both of the presentations that you and Eric made, there's always ways to expand on it. It doesn't mean that it has to stay, right, yep.
Or phasing some things.
Sure, yeah.
Well, would you be willing to, for that $7 million, would you be willing to also entertain any ideas of a closed-in facility? On that?
I would advocate for one.
My concern
I
is
don't
still,
think two comments, I mean, closed-in.
my concern still goes back to, I think I brought it during my presentation, is with the closed-in site that has to be opened, going down the road, it has to be staffed. And are we gonna staff it, we're gonna have 4 staff members to have 2 shifts every single day, so they can go walk in the morning, start in the morning, and also have people after school, being able to push moves or whatever, in the morning, in the evening. How many staff members does it take to be able to safely operate? in a
Yeah,
facility?
I'm not thinking of a facility in just that, but I'm talking about something like Susan Blair brought up. That, you know, you could have something that, have even garage doors coming down to close off an area. So you've got a space that's partly enclosed and then could be folded and close it, but it's not something that you know, people would be coming into and playing basketball.
My concern is I don't want the additional costs of that, and then the fear in the future that whatever budget cuts happen here or there, that suddenly it's not open anymore.
Don't promise a recreation center, because that's gonna have the same.
Exactly.
I don't promise it in the future. Take it off the table then. Let's say we're going to build a recreation center in the future, if you're not willing to staff it. No, if you're not willing to staff it, if staffing is an issue,
I totally agree.
then there shouldn't be a promise.
I'm talking about.
In the
Talking
future,
about
we're
recreation.
we talked about moving the park and taking down the building, but promising to look at a possible recreation, indoor recreation center in the future. She said, and they said it at the meeting, everyone said it, but. And that's gonna require staffing, just like a facility would now, so I'm just saying, don't.
Outside of the
don't promise.
tsunami zone, that's gonna cost the city a
It's still gonna be
boatload of money in insurance. There's
So I
there's
think
a
we can
lot
rule
of
it out.
costs involved.
Huh?
I think we can rule
So
it
you
out.
really want, you also find area about a community center in the future is the next project.
We can rule it out at that.
No, I'm not talking about, and that's, I'm talking about that, yes.
But I'm advocating for just something that gives us an outdoor classroom.
Well,
Let's just do educational programs, let's just do environmental programs, let's try and do cultural programs.
In a two-sided building.
Portion those on 3 sides would be my, but I'm not an expert, let's give it to an expert.
Okay, all I'm saying is if staffing is the issue, and you said it was for you, it would be this, it would be for a community center as the next project. Same issue, staff. Just to know that, so not to make false promises that we're going to do this and then have a community center down the
Is
road.
there somebody at this table that thinks we can have an indoor community center or rec center there?
Not there, Gary,
Okay.
I'm not talking about there.
All right,
I'm talking about at a different location.
okay.
We discussed that and we sort of said, oh, well, we could make it a park now. With some structures on it, open structures. And then later on, the next project that we would consider would be an indoor recreation center. What I'm saying is that staffing is the issue. It's going to be the issue of whether it's on this site or whether it's on another site.
I don't know anybody's arguing against that.
Yeah, if staffing, if we have a community center, there will need to be staffing.
I
Right,
mean, we had that solved in the previous project. We actually had the funding for operations as well,
Yeah.
but. Yeah, and that's one of the problems with, I think we're all in agreement. I mean, I'm in agreement with Eric that,
so
if
you,
you get a facility like that, then you have to staff it.
right. But Eric said that was his issue, so that's why.
Yeah, so
The only issue.
this is definitely not the only
Yeah.
issue, that is a big issue, but. There are enough issues with that, like I said, it's not the only issue
Right.
with this particular site. But dedicating that much, we wouldn't be building a full community center there, so we'd be staffing in order to keep it running. And then in the future building community centers, we also have to staff.
No, I'm not about that too. I'm just saying that I think that we jumped from the discussion last time to a mandate, and I didn't hear a mandate. I said that I talked with the counselors too, that I did not hear a
Oh, when
mandate
you say mandate, you mean a mandate from the community.
from the community. I did not hear a mandate from the community. We can still make the decision, but don't call it a mandate. And don't call it a consensus of the community, because it was not. And that's what.
When you were talking about mandate, I was thinking about legal.
No. I'm talking about mandate or a consensus from the community that this is the direction we should go. I did not hear
I
that.
don't think it's a mandate, but
Or
I
consensus.
think there's being realistic about. How much money we have. What funding can be used for. And so people can want things, but that doesn't mean that we can deliver on them.
Well, yeah, and you and I have a real disagreement on whether or not TLT funding can be used for a center open to everybody, a recreation center, but that's not, this isn't the time for that.
CBE, our attorney, the city's attorneys, significantly different project, significantly less money.
And TOT law says it needs to be substantially used for tourists.
Right.
And so the proposals that we heard at the last meeting could be substantially used by tourists.
Or pretty much be substantially used by.
What about those people who just want to do a recreation center and they don't care whether it's substantially used by tourists? They want the city to pay for we're being constantly told about how much money we have floating around, so I think that's what they're thinking of.
Well, let's use that money then.
Well.
Would you like to use that money?
No, I didn't say, Gary, don't make this so confrontational. I'm just asking questions. This is your baby. You are so fixated on getting it done in the way that you want to, that you are not willing to entertain any other.
I want to get
opinions.
something done. I don't want to keep arguing about this. I don't want to start over. I don't want to go down some path that we really can't deliver on.
Well, I don't either. Promising a recreation center that has to be fully staffed might be something we can't deliver on. I'm not, because it doesn't seem that there's an appetite for it in the future.
We also
Yeah,
have the
next
reality that in 15 to 18 very short months, we have to start paying taxes on that money we borrow.
Yeah, and that's why we didn't stop arguing and
Make some
make
decisions.
some decisions.
And
So where are we all on a not consensus, I'm not using that word, but where are we all from where we were the last time we had this discussion? I mean,
From the last time we had this discussion, and I said this before, that I didn't feel. And I've had lots of community members speak to me in the meantime, and I started thinking about it very carefully and thinking, well. I don't think there is a consensus from the community about what we should do. If the council wants to just make a decision, that's fine. But don't act under the, umbrella of a consensus, because
there isn't going to be a consensus. I agree with you in that there's never going to be a consensus. There's always going to be some who want this and some who want this.
And there were more voices at the last meeting who wanted.
of course, because one person, two people, are, I know, but they're encouraging people to come and be the loud voices.
So where are you, Eric?
Well, okay, there's no. I don't agree with that.
Yeah, it seemed like we have agreed on some super basic principles about what the park should be. You know, I have my idea about covered spaces, Eric has his idea about covered spaces. But generally, it seemed like last meeting, we had like 5 things that we all agreed on.
Okay, so let's start with parking.
Okay, well, I don't want more review service.
How many spots would you like?
Well, I don't know, because I'm not a parking engineer, so I don't know how much would fit. But I would say the minimum amount of parking necessary. Of course, necessary, and there would be thousands of spots, but, you know, to serve the needs. To serve the needs of that particular, I don't want people parking there and going to the beach. Right. Okay, I don't think that parking should be used for that, you know, and I certainly don't want it to be an impervious surface. I think that you can have parking, I've seen it everywhere, all over Oregon. There are gravel parking lots that are not compacted gravel, that the water can, you know.
If we wanted multi-use, if we did want to bring farmers market or other things like that, it would need to be at pace. But at this point, I think we should agree.
Why would
This point, I think we should agree that parking.
Parking needs to be a component.
it needs to be a component, but I think that we have to, I am not willing to say it has to be paid.
Restaurants.
I don't
So I'm
understand.
saying no less than, I think we need no less than 20 parking spaces.
They have farmers markets in unpaved areas all the time. The one in Manzanita is not a paved.
I talked to Tracy about it and she said paved lot, but
But I think the tribe has said that if it's asphalt, that it preserves the archaeological.
what would be the least?
The tribe also heard that environmental concerns were their utmost concern all, but that's what, one of the reasons that, you know, they like the idea of preserving the building.
So again, we'll have a professional give us some, ideas for how we can have parking there. And how many. So we all agree we need parking, right?
How many spaces?
That's gonna depend on a little bit on what other things we do. I just wanna make sure we all agree on parking. Okay, parking,
Yeah.
some parking, restrooms.
Absolutely.
Restrooms.
That was a heavy.
I'm getting a little
Surveys.
punchy, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, right.
Interpretive trail.
yes. Service drive,
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
okay. What's next?
I think some kind of covered space for spaces to make it usable. You know, in a mist, in a rain, I mean,
In the mildly inclement weather.
mildly inclement weather,
So that's some.
maybe, yes.
Our August meetings.
Yeah. October.
So whether those are, you know, individual covered picnic shelters, or whether we could get to a more of a group shelter, something we don't have here. I think those are critical.
And what did you call
Covered shelter.
them? Covered shelter.
The native, heritage cultural garden was a component in there.
I think the restored landscape, and I think that becomes part of that interpretive trail, not that it's like a set aside garden, but the whole interpretive
So
trail.
where is the component honoring the tribes that were originally there?
Where's the component?
Where's the component honoring?
The entire interpretive trail. That would include the native garden and use. I think any kind of covered structure should have, tribal input into it.
Public art.
Public art.
Would tie into. The tribal, what do you do?
Provided that, you know, perhaps with anyone in discussion.
Oh, yeah, they would have everything.
And that could be really tack.
Pardon?
That could be tack.
Yeah,
Help with that. What else?
I think that we need some sort of a small classroom.
Enclosed.
I think, or enclosed or something that could open,
And that's where I'm looking at a group shelter that could be,
that could roll in or roll down or whatever you needed to do, something.
that would kind of be
Very-
wish list.
Yeah, I think that's wish list, but,
A classroom for most of the days in this community would have to be enclosed. An outdoor classroom only work, or a partially enclosed classroom would only work in decent weather. If people get cold.
I understand that.
Yeah, so.
I mean, we
And
had a
the
nice
wetland
presentation.
overlay.
We had a nice presentation there by the beaver restoration people, just under the awning of the, I mean,
So even under the shelter, I mean, the reality is nobody's gonna go out when we're having an atmospheric river. I mean, I think we're all pretty much
Or even if it's cold.
gonna stay in. But I like the wetland overlook idea as truly a wish list item.
that's part of the interpretive trail, and I
And
thank you for,
didn't you say something about that as well? And even if it were
I would,
one over here.
in terms of burden over there.
I'd like to go here.
But, I think the consensus on food pantry remaining on site, and so I don't know if we need to say it, but that's.
I think we need to.
Well, and with food
But
pantry,
it's tonight, but we've said it.
with food pantry remaining, that leaves us, with, okay, how do we figure out how to queue up cars?
Yeah.
That's,
Again,
so that
we
becomes.
ask the experts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's part of the food pantry is, where to queue the cars.
And is the cost of the experts included in that obviously it's included in the budget, $7 million.
So we
We said six.
maybe the architectural.
See, it already heard by
And that
that.
includes architectural engineering, all this.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of pieces that we do already have. I mean, there are some pieces that can be integrated into what we'll need,
Like what?
some engineering things. There are some things that can be for the land, I think that can be used, Gary's thinking.
Well, there is, I don't think we want an outside, landscape architect to come in and, create a plan for us. I think we can do that. I don't think we want an outside expert to come in and design us an interpretive trail. I think that between, the tribe and tribal experts and our environmental people, that we can do that. I think we can do a lot of it as a community, and I think some of the, but there is, a list of plants that, should be there and should be featured. So much of this work is done.
I just, okay. When you say that we could design an interpretive trail, who's we?
I think somebody builds a trail, but it would be up to the community, working with the tribe, to develop the interpretive information that goes on the trail that we're asking somebody to build.
Just like we did with the interpretive signs that we have.
Right.
Yeah, that wasn't done by.
It's done by Ryan.
But obviously, the tribe wants to be a part of that, I think, we've got. And, environmental stories to tell as well, as
So,
watershed, wetlands.
so you have to have a director or somebody managing it to put all these pieces together and find someone to build the signage and all that stuff. So who would that be?
Well, when we did all of the interpretive signs, that was the first.
Okay, so Parks Committee. Okay.
And TAP would be
Really make it a community project.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
And
that's,
we'll all feel much more, it'll have a more heartfelt feeling.
I think that's important, because the community involvement portion of this, not just, somebody coming in and telling us what we should do.
No, I agree. I think that, but I was just wondering who was going to administer it. You say parks, that makes sense to me. They're that they would do it. We did it before, we can do it. Okay.
So the request from Bruce tonight for our discussion is Harvard or CMGC. And then if we decide CMGC, if we're happy with CETA and Greg, right?
Well, and I had a question about that actually as well, because Ashley said that this project needs to be substantially different. And so does that mean that we really should steer away from using CETA?
And that's your architect.
And Bremrick, because
Is that because of the settlement agreement or is that because of the peer review? She said that.
because of the settlement agreement.
The settlement agreement is one of the projects of the people hired by the city to implement the project, to my knowledge. When Ashley briefed me on this, that question, it was more about whether or not you use the thing, design consultant for a separate project without going out to bid again for that. And I think we both agreed that you can continue to use that same design consultant, so CETA, on a different project without having to resolicit that because they're still at the same project site. So there's enough of a connection to not require you to have to go back out.
I don't think using them, I don't think they are disqualified for that. And I feel badly for CETA and essentially what we put them through. But I don't know that they're a park designer.
Well, you know that, and they have a component who does parks, I don't know. That would be a question.
There certainly are parks designers, but I also think that there was a lot of pushback on CETA and outside experts coming in telling us what to do, though I do think we need a real parks designer.
And locally, I mean, when I say locally, I mean, that's what Tillamook.
I don't know.
We got, I don't think we have in this one. Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
What I'm saying is that okay, well, I'd like to know first if CETA has on staff, if they have a parks designer. I don't know that. We never asked that question.
Well, they brought in a landscape designer, which I think was some of the worst work that was done.
Yeah, no, I agree, and not even any acknowledgement that we had help. You know,
But you want to put it all fences.
right, so I don't know.
CETA's expertise seems to be a little bit more in public buildings.
Yeah, I'd just like to know, do you know, Bruce, if CETA has a.
They would bring in an outside designer.
What?
They would bring out a landscape architect as a team member.
So.
But I think there are
Mhm.
park designers.
We could definitely find, there's someone in the Pacific Northwest that could
Oh,
design.
sure.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And, I think that I personally think that CETA had their heyday. I think that we went in wrong and didn't give them a specific vision with a specific dollar amount. And I think we definitely need to do this no matter which way we go this time. But, I feel badly for CETA. They did well financially, getting us to that point.
And they're doing a great job.
Yeah.
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 And they're doing,
And
they're doing a great job.
Yeah. So,
And it seems like the architect that becomes their part of the process of selecting whoever might be a builder for any structure. But
Right.
Can I provide a few cents on the process? I would hire, we're just taking down all the buildings, you would hire a landscape architect. And then they would hire, their subcontract, you flip it on its ear because it's a majority landscape job. And then if we do any subsidiary smaller buildings, they would hire, It's the exact opposite of the last project. It was all.
Yeah, that's what I just said, is they would probably bring in someone as a sub.
No, like you hire a landscape architect and then they would hire. The landscape would be the majority.
Even,
Architect for structures, yes.
I have a construction background, just throwing it out there. Anyway,
What? I'm
I
sorry.
have a construction background. I thought we were having our own conversation here. It's late. We're getting on in this conversation. It's late. And, so which direction are we going? What are we gonna do here? Are we gonna try and figure out a budget? I mean, I know where I am.
Okay, where?
I said I wanna see a max of 6 million.
I would like to push him a little bit.
I'm 7.
If we go ahead with this, again, I'm just asked, so have we decided that we are going to go ahead with the park despite not having a consensus of the community? We're making this decision, is that what I'm hearing?
Well, we're in a, work session, so we're not voting.
No, I know that, but I wanna know that decision everyone feels comfortable with.
Well, I am, but, I mean, the budget that we pick will tell a lot.
Right.
So, I mean, if you think we should spend 10, then maybe there are other things we could do.
No, I don't, I think 7. That's what I-
Substantially less money.
And then Carrie.
But the numbers that Gary presented last time made sense, as still like high there, the six makes sense to me, it's the numbers that putting together. From the excesses above reserves in TOT funds. Being that they're 6.1, 6 makes sense to me.
And I think that, I really honestly think that if we go in at 6. We know that we have room. If we go in at 7, we don't know that we have that much more room. So if you give yourself that, or,
I think
So-
7 without borrowing.
any more money.
And
So why don't we put 6.5?
And we already have $2 million into that project, so we could take half of that away, just. We lost that because the initial project didn't go through.
So
So
you're not, I'm not considering that part.
no,
No, we're just talking
I
a
don't
new
think that's what she's
expenditure.
saying.
Okay. Sorry.
No, but I'm saying that just in the back of our mind,
Let's not do the math.
Yeah.
Well, that's
It's painful.
my job.
It's painful.
What did you say? I'm not paying.
She's looking at how much money we spent already, and
I'm a bean counter, and if you watch your pennies, the dollars should take care of themselves, so I'm always gonna be conservative. I am always gonna be more conservative, and that's just.
you know, I also think that there's other potential funding sources. And we talked about tourism and arts to fund the arts components. I think that there could be significant funding in the interpretive part of it. So I think that we could find other funding to support some of that stuff.
Well, and that's, so, but I'm talking about the actual project itself. Because if you're talking about additional funding, then taking the public art, that's not included in this dollar.
Would stretch those dollars.
It would, and so, but TAC has money, and we know we can go to TAC and get them involved with the tribes to put public art, right? I mean, that's the idea, so that isn't included in, public art isn't included in this shouldn't be included in this bid. It's something separate.
As long as it happens.
Right, and I agree with you that it needs to happen.
Whenever we do architecture, right?
But when you go out to a contractor, you need to give them a bid that you can live with, them coming back at 20% more.
I don't know, do that information, but
So if you go in at 6 and they come back at 7.2, there's your $7 million.
But if we're gonna establish a budget now, we're not gonna go over that.
We're trying to establish.
reduce the scope.
Right.
Yeah.
I still think $6 million is, I think that's the number.
6.5.
And you said 6.5 on.
I'm sure, I know you are.
Let's compromise.
I'll meet you at 6.5.
Well, you're expecting, and you're not gonna go above that. So,
We're gonna figure out what's gonna.
Gonna reduce the scope or
yeah.
potentially.
If you wanna buy a house, or if you wanna buy a house, you got $100,000, it comes in at 100,000, or you know, 100,000.
6.5.
6 point.
And we made a list of the items that we're looking for.
But to me, setting that budget, doesn't that tell you that there's not an option for the building?
Mhm.
I mean, or do we just wanna do the building and nothing else?
I mean, they might come back and say, we can do this for you for $4 million.
I-
You give them a one, and we don't wanna exceed this much, if you can come in less than that, great.
$6.5.
Really, okay.
Okay, I'm fine.
And then we have a list.
I'm pretty sure that we can do that
So
without borrowing a dime.
So where's that?
Using alternative dollars.
Hard bid versus CMGC in terms of delivery method.
Oh, you gotta be all responsible.
If we're not going to exceed it, we're talking about looking for a separate landscape architectural park design company, and then
Do we want a new
we
architect?
don't get the benefits that the CMGs, by maintaining CMGC, sort of more benefits for a quicker procedure for it to be a hard bid if we're transitioning to a different architect, different.
But you need a design to go for hard bid.
Hard bid would be for construction of any architecture.
I would think that would include the
That's
potential parking and landscape, right?
everything.
I think an architect will help you decide if CMGC is worthwhile in this project.
That's what I've been thinking, is like, we pick an architect and that's step one.
So do we wanna go with a different architect from CDOT?
I think so. I just,
I think one of the park design.
We do want a part.
Is that what you mean by architect?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Partner.
a designer.
Okay.
and again, Todd was saying, we're actually looking for a, essentially landscape.
Who would
designer, park
subcontract
designer,
that architect?
who would then, work with a builder.
They subcontract out the architectural elements.
The building aspect.
And then I don't know.
Designer is gonna have someone in their realm that has a structural component.
That probably has done park things before, if we get a park designer. But I don't know, I don't have a strong. I know Bruce did a good job of laying it out here, the positives and negatives, but I'm not sure that I am really. It's late, as Deanna said,
The hard bid. and the-
yeah.
The advantage of the CMGC, if you wanna know how much it's gonna cost to lay turf on the whole thing, they can give you that price. They can go out and get prices for you for that. Architects are iffy on it. They'll be looking at what standards might be. But you can actually get some prices on those kind of things. And, if you're looking at options, well, you know, this kind of a roof material or this, depending on, they can come right out and tell you what the difference is gonna be. while you're doing the design. But if you wait and finish the whole thing and then go up for a hard bid, then try to change it, it's gonna be harder to do.
Oh, I see.
It's gonna be more expensive.
So you did recommend the CMGC. Is that correct, Bruce?
Yes. Hire an architect, hire your designer, your landscape architect or whoever first. And then, when they propose, they would say, well, then this is who we would use for buildings. So you know who all the team is gonna be. And then shortly thereafter, you go off to CMGC. We have all the contracts and everything for that. And then they're the ones that are gonna give the prices. But you're probably gonna be working more through the architect.
But you have to do 2 RFP.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
just saying that clear.
You feel strongly about the hard bid thing?
I was trying to move the conversation along. And what was the recommendation was?
So we're okay with.
And everything that happens in CMGC is bid.
Yes.
So you're gonna get bids for everything.
So a new RFP for architect and then RFP following that for CMGC.
Yeah, the CMGC will require you guys to first adopt the findings, exempting it from the procurement.
And we've done all, we've
Okay.
gone through that process.
Perfect. So first you do an RFP for the architect and then the CMGC is usually higher than 30%, design. 30% of their finished product. And that's when you release an RFP for the cities.
We're very agree with that. You're
Yeah.
with that? Okay. Okay, what else do we need to do with the elementary school this evening? Anything?
Is that our main objective?
It's
Yeah.
more than I thought, yeah, and it's good.
Yep. Okay.
Well, I said 10:31. so we still got 40 minutes.
Yeah.
We're not done yet.
Yeah.
What's that?
I have good in order.
Okay, so you'll take us there?
Yeah, okay, okay, right there.
Well, we need, so we've got marching orders, we're gonna have to prepare our, we have some other. When do you want, there's certain items obviously that I'm gonna come back to, do you still wanna discuss this on December 16th, just to keep it fresh in everyone's mind? Or do you just want us to move forward and come back and we have separate?
I think it's time to move forward.
Me too.
So, but I'm just saying, do we, if we're gonna move forward, but if we don't have anything yet for you guys to decide on December 16th, you guys wanna talk about this, about anything to keep it fresh and on the agenda? Or just we come back when we have information of the RFP and everything?
Come back, we have the information, would be mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can't get it done on December 16th.
I think there are.
Okay. Anything else? No. Okay, good of the order.
I have something.
Okay.
I'll let you finish out the evening.
Good stuff.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Oh, wait, 10:30.
No, don't.
There have been a lot of comments coming through about elk,
What?
about the elk.
It's on our retreat agenda.
Yep, and it is, I just wanted to address that it is on our retreat agenda, and we will be talking about our majestic, friendly, mostly neighbors, during the retreat, and, Richard Bertolotti, has spoken up several times, and I think that it is important that he at least knows that, we're listening, and I think maybe we should have a conversation, maybe not completely about what happened. I don't know what happened. I wasn't here. I wasn't present. But I think we should have a conversation at some point. Maybe, I guess we have a lot of stuff on the retreat, but how we handle ourselves, when we're talking to other people, especially walking outside of a meeting. I think that just because we've left this building and we've shut down for the day, we kind of still have that hat on.
That hat's on 24/7.
Well, it is, it's true, it is true.
To let you know, I informed the city attorney of exactly what was said. It wasn't.
I don't wanna have that, I'm not asking for that discussion,
What are you asking?
because I explained what I was saying, but, I think that we just need to have a conversation at the appropriate time when we're not all at the end of the evening. Just a refresher on how we conduct ourselves,
And I think that's gonna come up in the goal discussion at the retreat.
okay,
Yeah.
perfect, thank you, but I thought it was important, to bring Richard's name into the good of the order of the city.
Okay, thank you.
I had one thing, that, it doesn't look like, you received the email from the Consejo Español.
Yeah,
You did, okay,
Yeah.
I didn't see it on it, and then.
Oh.
and that's what my,
Yeah,
I just wanted to.
is that yours too?
Yeah.
Okay,
Whatever it is.
so I think that we need to enter into the record the statement from the organization, and I replied to Jenny, the director, and I asked her if we had her permission to read the statement, but I think at this point, if we enter it into public record, that we all are, very much in agreement with the statement. And, what happened was horrendous. And that we're gonna do whatever we can to help our community.
I would even take it a step further, and we had a resolution the city entered into on September 1st, 2020. The city council passed resolution 2026, affirming Cannon Beach to be welcoming and inclusive city where racism and hate have no place, and reaffirming the city's commitment to fight for racial justice and human and civil rights for all. I think this new council we should reissue the proclamation, but with some additional verbiage. I have some proposed, which I'm gonna give to Jen, and she can distribute, and then we also have the verbiage from Consejo. I think that, and I think that we should discuss that at a future, very soon, about reaffirming the 2026 proclamation with additional, verbiage that reflects what's happening in this time, yeah.
Is there, Jen, is there some way that we can get Lisa's verbiage that she wants to add, to all of us?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna give it to Jen, and then she'll put it in the packet.
Well, I know, but without being serial.
Yeah, we would go with the packet, so I don't announce that to council anymore because of the serial issue. So anything that she sends, we can add to the packet, so that way you can have an open discussion and then.
So, and do I need to give you a copy? You probably have 2026 resolution.
I've got that in the records, I don't have email from.
Okay, so I like that. So I'll just give this to you now, and
So are you guys, do you want to, in one of our December meetings?
Wait, but it'll have to be, right,
So-
Oh, it has to be right.
I think so. Is everybody else? I agree, it's immediate, yeah, it's an immediate issue.
Do you want me to add it as an item on the November 25th, 15-minute meeting for the executive session? That's the next time we're meeting.
Okay.
Were you hoping for sooner than that, Mark?
No, I mean. Well, so you're out next week. Yeah, so the next time we're all gonna be together, it'll be that.
So do you guys, because we're gonna put that information in the packet, is our goal to just affirm this or to pass any resolution or proclamation? At that meeting?
I can ask a new resolution.
yeah.
Okay, so then you could maybe get, a consensus where staff works with Barb for the information from Lisa and, Isabella is, I never know which one is first. We can, we'll use that language to present a document for adoption on the 25th.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and then
As long as it's public meeting laws with.
Well, this could go in the packet, right? This would go in the packet.
Well, if you want it in, I put it in the packet, if you want it included in the resolution that we're gonna adopt on the 25th, we need it before the meeting on the 25th, we're good to go.
I'm probably,
Right, and to saying that we'll need to write the document before the meeting.
and so you're asking permission from the council to write the system then?
Yes.
Okay. So we okay with that?
Yeah.
Are you okay?
And then,
Don't care that we don't have time to write.
Oh, shut up, come on.
Okay.
but then if council doesn't want to use that exact language, we're gonna be able to communicate at that little session to change it. Cause you can't just say you're gonna adopt my language now.
Oh, no.
You can amend it, but we have to bring you something to review. Just center on that subject, because that is a meeting that we only really have a 2-hour window with. So we're gonna do the scope review at 11 AM, we'll discuss that. We still need to give enough time for the executive session, especially to have. Well, first, so,
We're gonna need to be prepared.
yeah.
Okay, I forwarded it to you.
And then I'll grab Lisa's stuff, which you guys and we'll together,
Okay,
you go.
sounds good.
But I had an health thing, but I guess I'll save it for
Yeah. So is there anything else for public comment or good of the order?
No, no, it's- I understand.
I'm glad you guys all have the same one.
Efficiency.
No, I was, very impressed with the statement and it'll be good for us to take action. Okay, nothing else?